Chapter 3648. Long Tian didn't even show up. He just used a little trick and made the Tao Tai and Chongqis pay such a terrible price. Tao Yongsheng couldn't help but think that if Long Tian had used this poison in the star-devouring grotto heaven, how terrible would the consequences be? Those thousands of Tao Tai clansmen wouldn't have been able to escape and would have all been turned into ashes, right? Thinking of this, Tao Yongsheng felt a lingering fear and couldn't help but shiver. Sizzle. Not long after, the bodies of Tao Yuxing and the two elders were burned to ashes by the blood fire. The three of them were burned to ashes, leaving only 3 shining godheads floating in the sky. Of course, the 3 godheads were also stained with a layer of dark blue light, and dark red blood fire rose. Even if their bodies are destroyed, as long as the godheads are still there is still a chance to recover. I can't protect their bodies, but I have to protect their godheads no matter what. Tao Yongsheng could only settle for the second best. He could only accept this cruel reality and the consequences. He was about to cast a spell to suppress the dark blue light and blood fire on the 3 godheads and seal them. At this moment, a familiar voice suddenly sounded in the sky. I gave you a chance to mend your ways. Unfortunately, you refused. Are you satisfied with the result now? It was his voice. It was still so calm, cold, and emotionless. When this voice sounded in the sky, Tao Yongsheng and Shueshang raised their heads instinctively and glared at the highest point of the sword formation. 30,000 feet above the ground, Ji Tianqing was wearing a white robe and was covered in golden light. He was looking down at them expressionlessly. He was not injured at all and was in peak condition. Not only was his divine power not weakened, but it was also several times stronger than before. Shueshang and Tao Yongsheng were instantly furious. Their eyes were blood red, and their bodies burst with anger and killing intent. Ah, Long Tian, you despicable and sinister beast, I will burn your bones to ashes. Unparalleled anger rushed to Tao Yongsheng's head. He ignored the 3 elders' godheads and activated the primordial chaos bell, charging towards Ji Tianqing with murderous intent. On the other hand, Shueshang was quite calm. He frowned and stared at Ji Tianqing. He thought to himself, so this is his real body. He really isn't injured. His divine aura is actually on par with mine. Could he be a 9th stage god king as well? This was impossible. If he really has such strength and realm, he must be a famous powerhouse in the dragon clan. There's no way I haven't heard of him. Long Tian was heavily injured and fled in a sorry state, was something that Shueshang had made up himself. The reason he told Tao Yongsheng this was because he had selfish motives. He wanted Tao Yongsheng to come over as soon as possible so that they could work together to deal with Long Tian. Previously, he had suspected that after Long Tian had killed the left protector and the 3 elders, he might not have been injured and had escaped unscathed. However, he had always been uncertain and felt that it was unlikely. Now that he had seen Long Tian with his own eyes, his guesses were confirmed. Waves of shock surged in his heart, and he was exceptionally shocked. Shua! In the blink of an eye, Tao Yongsheng had rushed up to the sky. He was still 100,000 feet away from Ji Tianqing. His entire body surged with blood light as he activated the primordial chaos bell with all his might. He released 9 blood-red giant swords which struck towards Ji Tianqing. Although the primordial chaos bell was a defensive god relic, and its most powerful effect was in its defensive power. However, it wasn't that it couldn't attack. It was just that its offensive power was slightly weaker. Even so, it was after all a king-grade god relic. Under Tao Yongsheng's full activation, the 9 blood swords released were shockingly powerful. If Ji Tianqing faced it head-on, it was highly possible that he would be heavily injured. Therefore, when the 9 blood swords came towards him, he didn't block it. Instead, he took a step back with an indifferent expression. Shua! A white light flashed and he retreated 10 feet. He passed through the heaven punishment sword array and stood in the sky outside the array. He didn't do anything and just looked at Tao Yongsheng expressionlessly. Kaboom! The 9 blood swords, which were 1,000 feet long, hit the light wall of the heaven punishment sword array and there was a deafening sound. The silver light wall shook violently and the sword array within a radius of 10,000 miles shook violently. There were layers of ripples and starry silver light. However, the terrifying impact of the 9 blood swords was quickly neutralized by the sword array. The 9 blood swords were smashed into pieces and turned into countless pieces of blood light that scattered in the sky. There was no doubt that Tao Yongxing's full attack with the primordial chaos bell was unable to destroy the heaven punishment sword array. He was stunned. He stared at the light wall of the sword array, and then looked at the primordial chaos bell in his hand. He was in a mess. Xueshang cast a spell to protect the Grand Priest and the Right Guardian as he watched the battle. He didn't act rashly. When he saw the outcome, he frowned and his pupils contracted. There was a flash of astonishment in his eyes. This sword array is so powerful. Tao Yongsheng activated the primordial chaos bell. No one except a peak divine king could block the full attack. This sword array was set up in a hurry. It can't be a supreme king-level divine array, right? Xueshang couldn't accept the outcome. He couldn't imagine how terrifying Long Tian's array skills would be if the truth was as he guessed. The great array fell into silence for a while. Tao Yongsheng couldn't back down. He was stunned and didn't know what to do. Continue to attack? Not only would he not be able to destroy the sword array, but he would also be humiliated. Stop and make peace? The Taotai tribe would be humiliated, and he would rather kill himself. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Ji Tianqing appeared calm and collected on the surface, but he secretly controlled the heaven-destroying sword formation and quietly devoured the godheads of the 3 elders. That was right. The divinities of Tao Yuxing and the 2 elders were still wrapped in dark blue light and crimson fire. They were floating in the sky. Ji Tianqing's target was their divinities. How could he let them go? Swoosh! There was a flash of white light and the divinities of the 3 elders disappeared. Tao Yongsheng, who was still in a daze, suddenly felt that something was wrong. He looked down and searched for the divinities of the 3 elders. At this moment, Ji Tianqing spoke again and pulled his attention back. Those who are unjust are doomed to destruction. The Taotai tribe and the Qiongqi tribe have done many evil things since ancient times. What happened before had nothing to do with me, so I naturally wouldn't care. But it's a pity that all of you are relentlessly pursuing this prince, and will not stop until one of you is dead. Then don't blame this prince for being ruthless. As he spoke, he stepped into the heaven punishment sword array, and took out the real burial of heaven's sword. He walked toward Tao Yongsheng. Tao Yongsheng instinctively retreated and wanted to hide in the primordial chaos bell with the injured high priest. At this moment, Xueshang suddenly raised his eyebrows and shouted, "Hold on!" As expected, Ji Tianqing stopped in his tracks. The battle intent and the imperious aura emitting from his body came to a stop too. You finally thought it through and want to surrender. Chapter 3649. Ji Tianqing squinted at Xueshang with a sneer at the corner of his mouth. Xueshang's face stiffened, and there was a flash of anger in his eyes. But he immediately suppressed his anger and said with a cold face, "Long Tian, today is the first time I've met you. Although you killed the left protector and 3 elders of my clan and have a blood feud with my clan, but I have to say that we did underestimate you before. Your scheming means and strength are enough to make me look at you with new eyes." Hearing his words, the sneer on Ji Tianqing's face grew even thicker. This was obviously the prelude to surrender and ask for peace. Next there was a twist, and it was logical. Tao Yongsheng also realized this point, and immediately became anxious. He glared at Xueshang and asked with a voice transmission, "Xueshang, what do you mean?" Xueshang ignored him and looked straight at Ji Tianqing. He continued to ask in a deep voice, "I'm very curious. You only have 6 to 8 hours at most. How can you set up a king-level sword formation in this surging sun lake?" Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and said in a playful tone, "Anyway, you are all going to die. Is there any meaning in asking this now?" Xueshang frowned fiercely and suppressed his anger again. He said in a deep voice, "Of course there's meaning. I've also met many Dragon Clan experts, but I've never seen such a monster like you." Tao Yongsheng frowned and the anger in his chest grew. He scolded again with a voice transmission, "Xueshang, are you old and confused? He's our enemy. Why are you praising him? Are you King scared and want to surrender and ask for peace?" As the saying goes, don't hit a smiling person. Since Xueshang praised him so sincerely, Ji Tianqing satisfied his curiosity a little. He sneered and said, This sword formation is my life's unique skill that I've comprehended for hundreds of years. In addition, I happen to be good at formations. These two simple sentences didn't reveal much information. But Xueshang did not ask and continued to ask. The fake person just now was exactly the same as you. Even the divine power aura and divine soul fluctuations were normal. But after the fake body exploded, there was no divine blood, only poison. I've met many divine kings who are good at using poison, but I've never seen this kind of poison method. How did you do it? Hearing this question, Tao Yongsheng was stunned. Then, he came to a sudden realization and thought to himself, so that's how it is. No wonder Xueshang pretended to be weak and praised Long Tian. It turned out that he wanted to inquire about the poison. After all, Long Tian was too young. After being praised by Xueshang, his confidence was inflated. Perhaps he would reveal some crucial information. In this way, we might be able to find a way to neutralize the poison. Xueshang is truly sinister enough to endure humiliation. Thinking, the way he looked at Xueshang's eyes changed. Xueshang of looked. He looked at Xueshang and said slowly, I knew you would ask this question. That's what you're most concerned about, right? After all, you won't be able to neutralize the innate fiend soul transference poison in a short time. Innate fiend soul transference poison? Hearing these words, Tao Yongsheng and Xueshang frowned and pondered. However, they searched the memories of their divine souls and did not find any relevant information. What kind of poison is this? I'm quite knowledgeable, so why haven't I heard of it? Xueshang asked in confusion. Ji Tianqing sneered. Of course you haven't heard of it. This poison is a unique secret method that I've researched. I've only used it 4 or 5 times. I see. No wonder. Tao Yongsheng and Xueshang were enlightened. Ji Tianqing continued, speaking of which, I've spent a lot of effort to deal with you. Your so-called fake body is one of this king's clones. I used the innate fiend soul transference poison to refine the doppelganger into a poisonous body, making it completely toxic. Not to mention the doppelganger's divine body. Even the doppelganger's hair was made of poison. Originally, the doppelganger's strength was weaker, so there were still some flaws. But you were too confident, too arrogant, and eager to kill me. Naturally, you ignored those flaws. Hearing this, Tao Yongsheng and Xueshang could not help but nod in agreement. That's right, Ji Tianqing's analysis was right. If they were not so confident and arrogant, and were more cautious before attacking, they would not have fallen into the trap. Unfortunately, time could not be turned back. Now, regarding the fake body and the poison, Ji Tianqing had explained the process. Xueshang's goal had been achieved. However, he and Tao Yongsheng looked at each other and realized something was wrong. Although he told us the truth, we still don't know how to resolve the innate fiend soul transference poison? This guy is sinister and cunning. We can't believe all of his words. Maybe even the name innate fiend soul transference poison is fake. The two of them communicated telepathically and despaired again. At this time, Ji Tianqing looked at Xueshang with a smile and said, I've said all that needs to be said. You should be on your way. As he spoke, he raised the sword of burial of heaven again. Holy and violent divine power was accumulated in his body, and he was ready to attack. Tao Yongsheng suddenly felt as if he was facing a great enemy. He hurriedly released his divine power and poured it into the primordial chaos bell, activating the divine light shield. Xueshang also took a few steps back and hurriedly took out a divine and majestic skeleton that was shining with golden light. That's right, it was a dark golden skeleton of a Chongqi beast that was hundreds of feet tall. Swoosh! He pulled the right guardian with one hand and hid in the skeleton of the Chongqi beast without hesitation. Ji Tianqing did not know which Chongqi beast skeleton it was, but from the fluctuations of divine power emitted by the skeleton, he knew that it was equivalent to a supreme king-level divine artifact. Therefore, he did not hesitate to attack Tao Yongsheng with his sword. Sword of Daytime. From hundreds of thousands of feet away, Ji Tianqing stabbed with the sword of burial of heaven fiercely. A cold light suddenly appeared and then expanded infinitely, like a scorching sun, and blasted toward Tao Yongsheng. The mighty divine power and the sword intent that could destroy heaven and earth suppressed Tao Yongsheng fiercely. Tao Yongsheng's face was solemn. He formed a divine art with both hands and desperately activated the primordial chaos spell to protect himself. He had already suffered a few losses at the hands of Ji Tianxing. He did not dare to be careless and underestimate his enemy again. He had to fight with all his strength. The golden scorching sun was about to hit the blood-red shield of the primordial chaos spell. At this time, Ji Tianxing suddenly turned his sword and slashed at the high priest not far away with all his strength. Sword of world destruction. In order to kill with one blow, he did not hesitate to draw on the power of the five elements realm and slashed out a giant golden blade that was 3,000 feet long. The poor high priest was sitting cross-legged in the sky, using all his strength to suppress the soul-transferring poison. He could not escape at all. When he realized that death was coming and opened his eyes in horror, it was already too late. Chapter 3650. Boom! Following a deafening muffled explosion, the daylight sword struck the blood light shield fiercely. The sword light that was like a golden sun was shattered into pieces on the spot, scattering divine light fragments all over the sky. And that blood light shield only shook violently for dozens of times and cracked open a few shallow cracks. The primordial chaos spell trembled a few times and quickly returned to normal. Tao Yongsheng, who was hiding in the blood light shield, was also safe and sound. However, this result was destined. Under the situation where Ji Tianxing did not use his ultimate killer move, it was impossible to shake the defense of the king-level top-grade god artifact. Even if he used all his trump cards, he would not be able to break the primordial chaos spell's shield. In other words, as long as Tao Yongsheng hid in the primordial chaos spell, he would be in an invincible position. Therefore, no one paid attention to the power of the daylight sword. Tao Yongsheng and Shueshang's gazes were gathered on the high priest. Boom! The massive blade of golden light, which was 30,000 feet long, slashed toward the high priest with an apocalyptic might that seemed capable of slicing through all matter. There was a bloodlight shield around him, which was temporarily set up by Shueshang to block the sword rain attack. After being hit by the golden light giant sword, the bloodlight shield collapsed directly, exploding into fragments all over the sky. Immediately after, the golden light giant sword sent the high priest's divine saber flying, sending it flying 10,000 feet away. The high priest, who lost 2 layers of defense, was finally hit by the golden light giant sword and his figure was swallowed by the golden light. The moment he was hit by the golden light giant sword, he was like ice and snow under the scorching sun, melting rapidly. He was not split into 2 halves, nor was he fragmented into pieces. Instead, he directly turned into ashes, his divine body rapidly melting. Seeing this scene, Shueshang and Tao Yongsheng's pupils constricted, their eyes revealing deep shock and fear. Heavens! The power of this sword technique is actually so terrifying. The high priest is a 9th stage realm god king. At any rate, he was actually insta-killed by him? Both of them were terrified, not only because the high priest was insta-killed, it was also because both of them felt a great threat from that sacred and resplendent sword light. The power of that sword technique was enough to threaten their lives. The two of them couldn't help but think and analyze. If Ji Tianxing had used this sword technique against them, would they have been able to block it? This question seemed to be very difficult to answer. It wasn't until the two of them looked at the life-saving artifact beside them that they both breathed a sigh of relief. Tao Yongsheng had the primordial chaos spell, while Shueshang had the Chongqi ancestors' indestructible golden body. With a divine artifact of this level in hand, unless the God Emperor, who had surpassed the divine king level, made a move, it would be very difficult to kill them. After a short while, the deafening noise gradually disappeared, and the fragments of divine light that filled the sky also dissipated. With a wave of his hand, Ji Tianxing grabbed a godhead covered in cracks and stored it into his spatial ring. Clearly, the severely damaged godhead belonged to the high priest. Strictly speaking, it was only his body that had been destroyed and his godhead that had been severely damaged. He hadn't died yet. However, his godhead had been shattered, and his consciousness had fallen into a coma. Falling into Ji Tianxing's hands was equivalent to dying. At this point, only Ji Tianxing, Shueshang, and Tao Yongsheng were left in the heaven-destroying sword formation. The atmosphere became extremely solemn. Only the whistling of sword radiance that filled the sky and the muffled sound of constantly colliding with the Cheongchi's skeleton and the crimson light shield was left. Now that things had developed to this stage, Tao Yongsheng was completely disheartened and gradually calmed down. Other than him and the two elders who had stayed behind to guard the star-devouring cave, the high priest and a few other elders had died under Ji Tianxing's sword one after another. In addition, close to 1,000 clan members and young elites had also been killed by Ji Tianxing. To the Taotai clan, this was second only to the calamity of clan annihilation. The loss was extremely tragic. Not to mention that the Taotai clan needed a few thousand years to recover. It was hard to say whether they could maintain their position as one of the 7 noble families of the demon clan in the future. At this moment, Tao Yongxing's heart was really dead, and he was completely hopeless. He swore that no matter what, he would never be angered by Ji Tianxing, and would never step out of the primordial chaos bell's protective shield. Otherwise, Ji Tianxing would most likely kill him too. If it was in the past, he would never have such thoughts and would even think it was ridiculous. But now, after experiencing a series of setbacks and seeing Ji Tianxing's strength and means, he had to be vigilant. He stayed in the bloody light shield and secretly operated his power to maintain the primordial chaos bell's defense. His eyes stared viciously at Ji Tianxing, but he did not say a word. No matter what he said now, he would only be humiliating himself. On the other side, Shueshang had the same thoughts and attitude. While maintaining the Cheongqi ancestors' indestructible golden body, he operated his power to suppress the right guardian's injury. He looked at Ji Tianxing expressionlessly and remained silent. Although the left guardian and 3 elders had been killed by Ji Tianxing, and 38 elites of the Blood Slaughter Hall had also died under Ji Tianxing's sword. But compared to the tragic experience of the Taotai clan, he suddenly felt that the loss of the Cheongqi clan was nothing. In fact, he even rejoiced at his own wit. Fortunately, I knew that this boy's strength was high, so I only brought the right guardian and 20 elites of the Blood Slaughter Hall. If I also brought a few elders, I'm afraid they would all be killed by him now, right? Thinking of this, Shueshang was secretly relieved, but also very regretful. He hated the damn Tao Yongsheng and regretted that he had agreed to help. If he could turn back time, he would never help the Taotai clan for benefits. It seems that you plan to hide in your turtle shell, and don't dare to take action. Don't you want to avenge your clansmen? Ji Tianxing looked at Tao Yongsheng and then at Shueshang, and a playful smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. His tone was somewhat mocking. Shueshang and Tao Yongxing's faces flushed red, and they were quite ashamed and angry. But they kept their rationality and suppressed their shame and anger, glaring angrily at Ji Tianxing. Bastard, the Taotai clan will never forget such a deep blood feud. Even if you can be rampant for a while, our Taotai clan has existed since ancient times and is still glorious and prosperous. There is a reason for that. One day, we will return today's humiliation tenfold, no 100-fold. Tao Yongsheng stared at Ji Tianxing, gritting his teeth and swearing. Ji Tianxing glanced at him and sneered. In that case, I can only cut the weeds and eliminate the roots to prevent future troubles. You have the primordial chaos bell, so you can hide in it to protect yourself. But the Taotai clan in the devouring star cave, humph. There was no need for Ji Tianxing to say the following words. Everyone understood what he meant. Tao Yongxing's face suddenly turned pale, and his heart was in his throat. How dare you? He subconsciously roared and pointed at Ji Tianxing. He was so angry that his entire body was trembling. The divine power in his body went berserk, and his blood flowed backward. He almost vomited blood again. Ha ha! Ji Tianxing just sneered disdainfully and did not say much. But Tao Yongsheng and Shueshang knew that not only did he dare, but he could also do it. Chapter 36:51. After a while, Tao Yongxing's aura weakened. Now he was trapped in the heaven-destroying sword formation, and the high priest and 3 elders under him were killed. Not only did he not have any help, but he also did not have the confidence to fight Ji Tianxing head-on. He did not even know if he could break the sword formation and escape. He really did not have the qualifications or the confidence to threaten Ji Tianxing. If Ji Tianxing really wanted to destroy the star-devouring cave, he could only go crazy in the sword formation and was powerless to stop it. So he suddenly regretted that he should have thought about those ruthless words in his heart, and never shouted them out in front of his face. It was too wrong, too stupid. Seeing that Tao Yongsheng had suddenly become dispirited and seemed to have given up, Ji Tianqing revealed a regretful expression. What? Weren't you full of murderous intent just now, threatening to make me pay back 10 times, 100 times? Tao Yongsheng lowered his head and did not look him in the eyes. He was full of anger and did not say a word, but his fists were clenched tightly in his sleeves, and his nails pierced into his palms. It was obvious that he was furious. Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and said expressionlessly, "Although I am very interested in those mineral veins in the star-devouring cave, the heavens have mercy. However, the heavens have the virtue of cherishing life, and this prince is not a bloodthirsty person. Tao Yongsheng, I'll give you one last chance. Admit your guilt and surrender to me now, apologize, and swear in the name of the heavenly Tao that the Taotai clan will not take revenge on me. Only then will I spare your life and spare the Taotai clan's life." Tao Yongsheng subconsciously raised his head and glared at Ji Tianqing. He was about to reject this extremely humiliating request. However, the curses that he was about to blurt out were forcefully swallowed back down. He had already suffered so many losses and he had learned to be smart. Ji Tianqing just said that this was the last chance. Although in Tao Yongsheng's eyes he was sinister, despicable, cruel, and vicious. But there was one thing that he had to admit: he was a man of his words. So Tao Yongsheng did not dare to be impulsive, and he did not dare to gamble the fate of the Taotai clan. He suppressed the anger and humiliation in his heart and clenched his fists so tightly that they creaked. He was hesitating and weighing the pros and cons in his heart. Ji Tianqing did not force him. He said in an indifferent tone, "You have 10 breaths of time to consider. Think carefully before you make a decision." After saying this, he looked at the Chongqi skeleton not far away, and his gaze fell on Xueshang. "Patriarch Xueshang, it's time for you to make a decision." Xueshang looked at him expressionlessly. He shook his head and said, "Long Tian, you have already taken the initiative. Victory is within your grasp. Why do you have to ridicule me like this?" In the face of such obvious weakness, Ji Tianqing couldn't help but frown and ask, "What? This king has killed the left guardian and 3 elders of the Chongqi clan. Are you not going to avenge them?" Xueshang's expression was solemn as he said in a calm tone, "If it were some other small fry, I would naturally avenge my clan. But you are the dragon race's god king, your status is different. Our clan has always followed the lead of the dragon clan. Since ancient times we have also worked hard for the dragon clan and made a lot of contributions. So this king will not make an enemy of you." Ji Tianqing smiled and asked, "You are quite patient. You know how to stop your losses in time." Xueshang said in a serious tone, "Of course, I just don't want to make an enemy of the dragon clan and cause a rift between our 2 clans. I am not afraid of you. No matter how many tricks you have up your sleeves, no matter how many divine abilities you have, I have my ancestors' indestructible golden body, so I am invincible. Although it is not a Khanate treasure, it is comparable to the primordial bell of chaos. It has protected our clan for tens of thousands of years without decline." Ji Tianqing looked at the indestructible golden body carefully and nodded. "Yes, this is true. Patriarch Chongqi's indestructible golden body is comparable to a Khanate treasure. If you insist on hiding in the indestructible golden body, this king can't do anything to you." He added in his heart, "Maybe, only when I reach the upper-level divine king or the burial of heaven sword is restored to the king level can I destroy Patriarch Chongqi's indestructible golden body." After a pause he asked Xueshang, "But have you thought about it? If you don't take revenge, how will you explain to your clansmen?" Xueshang said expressionlessly, "This is my fault. If I didn't covet the benefits promised by the Taotai clan and rashly agreed to help, there wouldn't be such twists and turns. I will explain to my clansmen and ask for forgiveness, and take this as a warning." Tao Yongsheng, who was not far away, heard the conversation clearly. Seeing Xueshang admit defeat and retreat, he immediately glared at him and asked coldly, "Xueshang, what do you mean? You actually admitted defeat and surrendered to him? Have you forgotten our agreement and the conditions that I promised you?" Xueshang looked at him expressionlessly and said indifferently, This is the grudge between the Taotai clan and Long Tian. I am only here to help. How can I make a decision for you? Resist or admit defeat, it's all up to you. If you think it's inappropriate, then you go first. I will abide by the agreement. You! Tao Yongsheng was so angry that his eyes turned black. A mouthful of blood surged to his throat, but he could only swallow it back. Shueshang's meaning was clear. You started this. I am only here to help. If you can do it, then do it. However, Tao Yongsheng couldn't and didn't dare to do it. He almost sacrificed all the elites of the Taotai clan and still couldn't hurt Ji Tianqing, let alone take revenge. On the other hand, Ji Tianqing didn't even reveal his identity, background, or backing. He could defeat the Taotai clan single-handedly. Tao Yongsheng really didn't dare to make trouble. He was afraid that if he continued to be entangled, the entire Taotai clan would be reduced to ashes. At this time, Ji Tianqing looked at him and said expressionlessly, Tao Yongsheng, 10 breaths time is up. In other words, it's time for you to declare your position. Tao Yongsheng was silent. He lowered his head and endured the endless humiliation and anger. His body was trembling. After a long time, he slowly raised his head and looked at Ji Tianqing expressionlessly. He said in a dull tone, I, Tao Yongsheng, represent the Taotai clan to admit defeat and apologize to Long Tian. This matter was because the Taotai clan was greedy and tried to plunder Long Tian's dragon bloodline. It led to this series of tragedies. This is my clan's own fault. I apologize to Long Tian and admit my mistake. After saying that, he cupped his fists and bowed to Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and said calmly, Yes, and the heavenly oath. Tao Yongsheng slowly straightened his body and endured the endless humiliation and anger. He looked up at the sky and closed his eyes. He said in a low and solemn voice, The heavenly Tao is above. The 35th clan leader of the Taotai clan, Tao Yongsheng, now swears to the heavenly Tao. Today's matter, the Taotai clan and Long Tian will be written off. The Taotai clan will never take revenge on Long Tian in the future. If there is a violation of this oath, the Taotai clan's bloodline will be severed and they will be reduced to ashes. As his voice fell, there seemed to be a feeling in the unseen above the 9 heavens. Lightning flashed above the sky, but it quickly returned to calmness. Clearly, the heavenly oath had been completed. After Tao Yongsheng finished swearing the oath with a trembling voice, 2 lines of blood tears actually gushed out of his eyes and slid down his aged cheeks. Chapter 3652. Tao Yongsheng was forced to such a state. He was really disheartened and had nothing to live for. The Taotai clan had suffered a great loss, but he had to admit that he deserved it, and was forced to swear that he would not take revenge. Shueshang saw all this with his own eyes, and he could only sympathize with him. His heart was filled with sadness and helplessness. He believed that after the Taotai clan suffered such a blow, they would not be able to recover and fall into a trough. Even Tao Yongsheng's will and mental state would collapse, and his will would be depressed for a long time. It seemed that this was not a bad thing for the Chongqi clan. They could take advantage of this opportunity to expand their territory and sphere of influence, and take over the resources controlled by the Taotai clan? This idea is not bad. I'll go back and think about it carefully. Shueshang was thinking about these dirty things when Ji Tianqing's voice suddenly rang in his ears. Clan leader Shueshang, it's your turn now. Shueshang suddenly woke up and looked at Ji Tianqing in shock and anger. What do you mean? I've already admitted defeat and asked for peace. If we give each other a way out, won't it be over? You're so aggressive and pestering, what do you want to do? Seeing Shueshang's unwilling face, Ji Tianqing pointed at Tao Yongsheng, who was still looking at the sky with his eyes closed, and said like him, go through the formalities to make me feel at ease. Otherwise, I don't mind going to the Nebula Cave. You. Shueshang almost couldn't help but curse. His whole face turned purple, and he was so angry that his lungs were surging. Just now, he was still sympathizing with Tao Yongsheng. He didn't expect that in the blink of an eye, it would be his turn. After being beaten so badly, he still had to apologize and swear to heaven that he would not take revenge. This was simply stepping on the Chongqi clan's face like the bottom of a shoe. No one bullied people like this. Shueshang's face was gloomy. He stared at Ji Tianxing angrily and said in a cold tone, Long Tian, my clan has no deep hatred with you. Why do you have to be so aggressive? You must know that if you don't go too far, it will be easier in the future. I took a step back, not because I'm afraid of you, don't force me to take action. Without waiting for him to finish, Ji Tianxing revealed a smile and said expectantly, That's good. This king was afraid that you wouldn't be willing to help. I'll kill you first and then destroy the Nebula Paradise. This is definitely a great deal. Xueshang fell silent when he saw how eager and impatient he was. He finally understood that Ji Tianxing really hoped that he and Tao Yongsheng could be more unyielding and fight to the death. In this way, Ji Tianxing could justifiably kill the two of them, then wipe out the Tao Tai and Chong Qi clans and plunder their wealth. This guy was simply a lunatic. Xueshang cursed in his heart. He really wanted to slap himself. At such a crucial moment, who cared about face and dignity? If they really fell out, the Chong Qi tribe would definitely be at a disadvantage. With this thought, Xueshang could only imitate Tao Yongsheng and reveal a grief-stricken expression. He bowed to Ji Tianxing from afar and said in a low voice, Supreme Being Long Tian, this king was deceived by Tao Yongsheng and lost my rationality due to greed. That's why I attacked you. Here this king apologizes to you. Please forgive me. Ji Tianxing nodded and pointed to the sky. Continue. Xueshang's heart was filled with grief and indignation. However, he could only endure the humiliation and close his eyes to look at the sky. His voice was low and trembling as he slowly recited, Heavenly Tao above, the 36th clan leader of the Chong Qi tribe Xueshang. When he recited the Heavenly Tao oath with a trembling voice like Tao Yongsheng, his entire body and hands trembled. It was not fear but anger and humiliation. Extreme humiliation. This was definitely the most humiliating day in Xueshang's life. Although he did not shed tears of blood like Tao Yongsheng, his grief-stricken expression was definitely from the bottom of his heart. After Xueshang made the oath, Ji Tianxing nodded slightly and revealed a satisfied expression. I'm seeing that you are so sincere, this matter will end here. The two clan leaders put the overall situation first and endured humiliation to survive. It's really touching that you have sacrificed so much for your people. Xueshang's face was twitching. He wished he could strangle Ji Tianxing to death. As for Tao Yongsheng, he was still looking up at the sky. The tears of blood on his face had not dried, and his entire person was like a stone statue. Obviously, he was still immersed in a spiritual world filled with endless grief and humiliation. He was unwilling to face reality and could not hear everything around him. To put it simply, he was autistic. Seeing Tao Yongsheng like this, Xueshang sighed. Sigh, I can't count on this old fellow. I can only do it myself. Therefore, he looked at Ji Tianxing expressionlessly and asked, Long Tian, we have already made the Heavenly Tao oath. The grudge between the two clans and you is over. You should also release the sword formation and let us leave, right? In addition, you have to give us the innate demon soul transference poison that we have been poisoned with. Unfortunately, before Xueshang could finish speaking, Ji Tianxing turned and flew away. He floated away and passed through the light wall of the sword formation. He only left a sentence that echoed in the sky. You can break the sword formation yourselves. Antidote? When I studied this poison, I did not study the antidote at all. As his voice fell, his figure appeared at the top of the sword formation. He waved his hand, and hundreds of streams of light flew out from the lake around the sword formation. Swish, swish, swish. With a wave of his sleeve, he collected the hundreds of streams of light and turned them into shooting stars that flew across the sky and quickly disappeared. Inside the sword formation, Xueshang glared at Ji Tianxing's back and watched him disappear into the sky. He was so angry that he gritted his teeth. Ah, damn thief, damn it. Break the sword formation by himself? This is a king-level sword formation. Even if I join forces with Tao Yongsheng, it will take at least 3 to 5 days to break it, right? What's more, Tao Yongsheng is muddle-headed now. How can I break it by myself? As for the antidote, who doesn't prepare the antidote when refining poison? Who are you lying to? Xueshang roared in his heart, cursing and complaining crazily. But unfortunately, Ji Tianxing had already gone far away and could not hear him. After a long time, Xueshang calmed down his surging anger and gradually calmed down. He put away Qiongqi's indestructible golden body and placed the right guardian in the divine artifact before flying toward Tao Yongsheng. Although there were still 20,000 giant swords flying and shuttling in the sword formation, they were still attacking. The power of the giant swords was obviously weakened. Xueshang could resist them with the protective divine light, so his life was not in danger. Hey old Tao, that kid has escaped. It's over. Xueshang flew to the bloody light shield and stopped, calling Tao Yongsheng. However, Tao Yongsheng turned a deaf ear and still remained like a statue. Xueshang could not help but frown and said angrily, "Old Tao, that kid has already left. Stop pretending." Tao Yongsheng still did not respond. Xueshang gradually became angry and said angrily, "If you want to be a statue, then continue to be a statue. I'm going to find a way to break the formation and leave. By the way, the conditions and rewards you promised me cannot be less." Tao Yongsheng's body suddenly trembled and he woke up. He stared at Xueshang with burning eyes, his face ferocious, and said in a trembling voice, "No, I can't just let it go. I have a way. We can take advantage of a loophole." Chapter 3653. Are you crazy? We just made a heavenly oath and you still want to take revenge on him? Xueshang looked at Tao Yongsheng in shock, and his expression was very interesting. After saying that, he suddenly felt that something was wrong. He frowned and said, "I am talking to you nicely, and you are pretending to be a statue. When I mention the conditions and revenge, you quickly change the topic. Old Tao, I think you want to go back on your words, right?" Tao Yongsheng completely ignored his words. He looked like he had gone mad. His face was ferocious and his lips trembled as he said, "Although we were forced to make a heavenly oath, it was only a temporary measure. But that's only a temporary solution. We can think of another way. We have suffered such heavy losses and humiliation. Are we going to swallow it? No, absolutely not. The Taotai clan has not suffered such setbacks and humiliation for tens of thousands of years since ancient times. I can't lose the face of my ancestors. No matter what, I can't take this lying down. I will definitely tear him into pieces and turn him into ashes." Seeing that he was full of bloody light and emotional, Xueshang hurriedly waved his hand and persuaded, "Old Tao, calm down first. Listen to me. The Taotai clan has suffered heavy losses and you have suffered so much. It is reasonable for you to lose control of your emotions. But look at me. Am I not the same as you, suffering heavy losses and losing face? But I won't be mad like you. I can still stay calm and collected." As he said that, Xueshang patted his chest, and he looked like he wanted Tao Yongsheng to learn from him. But how could Tao Yongsheng listen? He was still immersed in a state of madness. His eyes were fierce, and he said in an emotional tone, "Xueshang, although we made a heavenly oath, the two clans can't take revenge on him. But we can take advantage of the loophole of the heavenly oath. Our clansmen won't take action against him, but we can ask others to do it." Xueshang frowned and asked subconsciously, "Who do you want to ask?" Tao Yongsheng said without hesitation, "First, we will ask more than 30 territories in the northern half of the continent. We will offer a huge reward in the name of the 10,000 Demon Alliance, and ask all the territory lords and divine king masters to kill that bastard. Second, we will contact the 10,000 Demon Alliance and ask their experts to help. Finally, we will go to the mysterious cave and ask the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor to seek justice and take revenge for us." Xueshang was stunned. He frowned and asked hesitantly, "This is your idea and plan? Although it sounds feasible, what does it have to do with taking advantage of a loophole? Even if we don't use the name of the 10,000 Demon Alliance, aren't we still taking revenge on Long Tian?" Tao Yongsheng's, and he said, his voice, "Of course this is a loophole. We won't let the people of the two clans attack, including you and me. We're just borrowing a knife to kill them. But Tao Yongsheng's expression was solemn as he said in a low voice, "If we don't give it a try, who knows if it will work? In any case, I can't swallow this anger. I would rather die than endure such humiliation." "Of course not," Xueshang answered without hesitation. However, after a moment of silence, he asked, "Let's not talk about asking the 10,000 Demon Alliance and the Domain Lords to help. You want to complain to the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor? Don't forget, Long Tian is also an expert of the dragon race. How can the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor help us fight against his own race?" Tao Yongsheng sneered, "Ha! There are too many dragons in the dragon realm. They are like a piece of iron. Don't they have conflicts and kill each other? Although Long Tian is from the dragon race, we have never heard of his name. We have also never seen him in the mysterious cave. This means that he has nothing to do with the mysterious cave and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. Long Tian is cruel and ruthless. He killed the people of the Chongqi and Taotai races and brought disaster to the Star Source continent. As the master of the Star Source continent, shouldn't the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor suppress the evil and restore peace to the continent?" Shueshang hesitated for a moment and nodded. "What you said makes sense." Tao Yongsheng quickly said in a serious tone, "If that's the case, then you agree with my plan? What are we waiting for? Why don't we hurry up and act? If we delay any longer, I'm afraid that kid will run away again." As he spoke, Tao Yongsheng impatiently took out his communication jade slip and was about to send a message to the Thousand Demon Alliance. Wait! Shueshang finally realized that something was wrong and remembered something very important. He quickly stopped Tao Yongsheng and said in a serious tone, "Before we act, you have to give me an explanation. In order to help you kill Long Tian, I killed the Left Protector, 3 elders, and 38 elites of the Blood Slaughter Hall. You have to fulfill the conditions and rewards you promised me first, right?" Tao Yongsheng was stunned for a moment. Anger flashed in his eyes. However, he suppressed his anger and said expressionlessly, "Shueshang, don't you trust me? Since I agreed to your conditions and revenge, I will fulfill my promise. However, this will have to wait until Long Tian is killed and we have avenged him." "That won't do." Shueshang refused and said with conviction, "My clan has sacrificed so much, and you haven't even given us a single divine stone so far. You have to pay 300 billion worth of ores first, so that I can use them to comfort my clan members and arrange the funeral of the Left Protector and the 3 elders. As for the other 2 conditions, I can be generous and give you some time. You are looting a burning house." Tao Yongsheng glared at him and shouted angrily, "My clan's high priest and several elders have just died, and thousands of clan members and elites have just died. At this sad moment, as an ally of my clan, you not only don't understand and comfort us, but also take the opportunity to blackmail us." "Shueshang, has your conscience been eaten by a dog? I was really blind in the past to form an alliance with you and treat you as a reliable ally." Tao Yongsheng was extremely angry and emotional. His face was distorted, and his beard and hair were dancing violently. Seeing him like this, Shueshang quickly waved his hand and explained. However, he thought in his heart, this old man has been hiding from me before. I didn't expect that when Long Tian caused havoc in the star-devouring Grotto Heaven, he had already killed thousands of Taotai clansmen. No wonder Tao Yongsheng paid such a huge price to ask me for help. In this way, there are not many Taotai clansmen left, and their core forces have been severely damaged. Now they are almost crippled. Even if I don't get any rewards, I can still take over their properties and plunder their wealth." Thinking of this, Shueshang sneered in his heart and gradually perfected the next plan. Chapter 3654. After Shueshang's persuasion and explanation, Tao Yongsheng finally calmed down. The 2 of them haggled for a while. In the end, Tao Yongsheng paid 100 billion ores first and ended the dispute. Then, the 2 of them started to discuss how to get the Thousand Demon Alliance and the 30-plus region masters to help. The regions in the northwest of the Astral Source continent were far away, and were not as prosperous as the central regions. However, each region had 3 to 5 God King experts. The region masters and deputy region masters had the strength of a middle God King. If they could make use of these God Kings, they would be a force to be reckoned with. With the bounty in the name of the Thousand Demon Alliance and the reputation of the Chongqi and Taotai clans, it would not be difficult to mobilize those God Kings. After all, the Chongqi and Taotai clans were very famous in the northwest of the Astral Source continent. What troubled Xueshang and Tao Yongsheng was how to get the Thousand Demon Alliance to help. The Thousand Demon Alliance was established more than 900 years ago and rose to prominence 500 years ago. The Alliance Master, Divine King Luo Ho, was said to be from another continent and was not a native of the Astral Source continent. This person's identity and background were mysterious, but he was very powerful. In the past 1,000 years, only 2 peak god kings had appeared in the Astral Source continent, and they were not weaker than the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. And Divine King Luo Ho was one of them. The Thousand Demon Alliance was as its name suggested. It did not discriminate between races or bloodlines. As long as they met the requirements and passed the Thousand Demon Alliance's test, they could join. Since ancient times, the difference between bloodlines was deeply ingrained in the hearts of demons. However, 99% of the ordinary demons hated it and were powerless to change it. Therefore, when the Thousand Demon Alliance appeared, it caused a huge commotion in the Astral Source continent. Billions of demon experts cheered. Experts of the demon race from different species were eager to join the Myriad Demon Alliance and make contributions to the development of the Myriad Demon Alliance. In just a few hundred years, the Thousand Demon Alliance had become one of the top 3 factions in the Astral Source continent. Now, the Thousand Demon Alliance had more than 1 million members and 99% of them were heavenly gods and above. There were countless god monarchs and more than 100 god kings in the alliance. Even the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor of the mystical Grotto Heaven was wary of the Thousand Demon Alliance and did not dare to suppress or control them. Xueshang and Tao Yongsheng had met the upper echelons of the Thousand Demon Alliance and knew a few elders and protectors. However, this matter was of great importance. They felt that it was necessary to contact the Myriad Demon Alliance's Alliance Master, God King Luo Ho. However, they did not know God King Rahu, nor did they have God King Rahu's transmission jade slip. After discussing for a while, Xueshang and Tao Yongsheng unanimously decided to send a message to the Great Elder of the 10,000 Demon League to explain the matter. God Divine King Luo Ho was God. Therefore, Tao Yongsheng prepared to send a message to the Grand Elder of the Demon Alliance. Xueshang stretched out his hand to stop him. He frowned and said, "Old Tao, even if we want to plan this, can't we break this sword formation first? Inside the sword formation, you and I have to circulate our divine power at all times to resist the sword light's attack. Moreover, you and I have both been poisoned by the innate fiend soul transference poison, and the right protector is still circulating his energy to resist the poison. If we don't leave the sword formation soon, the poison will break out. Our lives will be in danger then." Tao Yongsheng was stunned. He looked at the sword light and nodded. "Okay, you're right. Let's break the sword formation first. But it's a king-grade god formation. You and I are not good at formations. I'm afraid it will take a long time to break it. Even if it takes a long time, we have to get out first." Xueshang was very anxious. He looked impatient. Tao Yongsheng could not fall out with Xueshang for the sake of his revenge plan. He could only endure his irritation and agree to break the formation first. Then he put away the communication jade slip and worked with Xueshang to break the sword formation. The two flew hundreds of laps around the sword formation and used their secret arts to observe the structure of the sword formation. This was only the first step of breaking the sword formation, but it took them an entire day. Tao Yongsheng was impatient. He planned to let Xueshang observe the sword formation while he contacted the Thousand Demon Alliance. Fortunately, after a day, Xueshang finally understood the structure of the sword formation. Then, he and Tao Yongsheng worked hard to figure out how to break the formation. This was the second step of breaking the formation. It took them another 2 days. Tao Yongsheng became more and more anxious. He was exhausted. Fortunately, Xueshang thought of 3 ways to break the formation, and they all seemed to work. So he pulled Tao Yongsheng and started to cast spells to break the formation. This was the third step of breaking the formation. It was the last step and also the most difficult step. The two of them tried their best and used all their skills. They spent 3 days but still could not break the formation. Xueshang had tried all 3 methods, but none of them could be broken. Tao Yongsheng was angry. He proposed to activate the primordial chaos bell and Chongqi ancestors' indestructible golden body to directly break the sword formation. Anyway, The power of the sword formation was gradually weakening. It was weaker than before. Xueshang could not persuade him and could only agree to this reckless decision. The two of them activated their clan treasures and attacked the sword formation with all their might. As a result, the sword formation shook violently. A loud sound shook the sky and divine light burst out, but it did not break. The two of them attacked continuously for 2 hours. They were tired and panting, but they still could not break the sword formation. Tao Yongsheng gave up and said with a black face, Xueshang, you continue to study the way to break the formation. I will send a message to the Demon Alliance. 6 days have passed. This matter cannot be delayed any longer. After that, he completely ignored Xueshang's advice. He hid under the protection of the primordial chaos bell and sent a message to the Demon Alliance. Xueshang could only fight alone and continue to think of a way to break the formation. Tao Yongsheng carefully and tactfully expressed his thoughts. Then he entered a message into the jade slip. He checked twice to make sure that it would not cause a misunderstanding or anger the Demon Alliance. Only then did he send out the jade slip. Next he waited patiently. He did not know whether the Great Elder of the Demon Alliance was busy or discussing with someone. After a full 4 hours, the Great Elder of the Demon Alliance sent back a message. Patriarchs Yongsheng and Xueshang, I deeply sympathize with the difficulties and losses of the two clans. In the sphere of influence of the Demon Alliance, such a cruel and vicious person appeared. Even if he is a descendant of the Dragon Clan, we cannot tolerate it. Although our alliance master is in seclusion, I will not disturb him for such a small matter. But I can decide this matter based on the discussion between me and the elders. However, the Demon Alliance has its own rules. We will never interfere in the grievances of other forces and powerhouses. Even if you put up a bounty in the name of the Demon Alliance, it will damage the reputation of the Demon Alliance. But for the sake of the cooperation between the two patriarchs and me many times, I can make the decision to give you some face. Chapter 3655. Bah! Ushinua this be *tch. She said it in such a dignified way. Isn't she just asking for a sky-high price? After reading the jade slip, Tao Yongsheng was so angry that his face turned purple, and he couldn't help but curse. Xueshang, who was thinking hard about the way to break the array, was awakened by him and couldn't help curling his lips. The 10,000 Demon Alliance is not the Relief Society. It is also a ruthless organization. You said you wanted to ask the 1,000 Demon Alliance for help before, and I knew it was not reliable. Tao Yongsheng turned his head and glared at him, and said with a black face, I will take care of this matter. You just need to break the sword array. The implication was to let Xueshang mind his own business. Xueshang shrugged and sneered, okay, I will only break the array. You negotiate with the 1,000 Demon Alliance. No matter what the result is, it is your business. I am just helping you. Tao Yongsheng's body stiffened, and he asked with a black face, Xueshang, what do you mean? Do you mean that my Taotai clan has to fulfill all the conditions of the 1,000 Demon Alliance? Otherwise, Xueshang spread out his hands and asked, do you want me to pay? Tao Yongsheng was so angry that his whole body trembled, and he scolded, Xueshang, do you have any shame? Is this revenge for me? This is about your and my dignity, the face of the Taotai clan and the Chongqi clan. Since it is revenge for our two clans, of course we have to pay together. Xueshang waved his hand and said indifferently, don't drag me into this. The biggest loss and the most humiliating is you and the Taotai clan. I don't care. I am willing to help you because of the conditions you agreed to. If you want me to pay, then I would rather not take revenge. You! Tao Yongsheng was so angry that he pointed at Xueshang with trembling fingers, but he couldn't say a word. At this moment he finally saw the true face of Xueshang. He secretly swore in his heart that from now on, he would cut off contact with the Chongqi clan and would never help each other again. Especially Xueshang, he must cut off all ties. At this time Xueshang sneered in his heart. Haha. The trouble you caused me so much trouble and you still want to drag me down? For the sake of our past relationship, I won't fall out with you for now. After this is over, let's see how I'll take your territory and resources. In the future, the star-devouring paradise will be mine. Previously, the two of them appeared to be united on the surface but were actually divided at heart. Now they were completely at odds with each other. Fortunately, the two of them still restrained themselves and did not shed all pretenses of cordiality. They both kept silent and went about their business. 2 hours later, Xueshang finally figured out the correct way to break it. With the help of Patriarch Qi's indestructible golden body, he began to break the heaven-destroying sword formation. For hours later, Tao Yongsheng and Hu Xinyue had negotiated many times and finally reached an agreement. He had to pay 400 billion in minerals and 9-star swallowing flowers before Hu Xinyue agreed to offer a high bounty in the name of the 10,000 Demon Alliance. Of course, Tao Yongsheng had to pay for the astronomical treasures and resources required for the bounty himself. Hu Xinyue suggested that he take out 2 king-grade high-grade divine artifacts and 50 billion worth of ores as a reward. This was the only way to attract the godly kings of more than 30 domains and the experts of the Myriad Demon Alliance. Moreover, any participant who could provide clues and help would receive a reward worth 5 billion. This was the only way to fully mobilize the enthusiasm of the participants and ensure that the interception mission would be completed as soon as possible. In addition, the Myriad Demon Alliance would not send any experts to help Tao Yongsheng carry out the interception mission. It was not that the Myriad Demon Alliance did not want to accept the mission, but Tao Yongsheng could not afford it. Of course, if the godly kings of the Myriad Demon Alliance wanted to participate in the mission voluntarily, it would be a different matter. When this condition was agreed, Tao Yongsheng's expression was wooden and his voice was trembling as he agreed. His heart was bleeding and he could not breathe. He held the communication jade slip in his hand and closed his eyes to look at the sky. He murmured with a miserable expression, "It's just a sky-high bounty in the name of the Myriad Demon Alliance. I actually have to spend 600 billion to get the permission of the Myriad Demon Alliance. The reward for the bounty will cost at least 200 billion. Even if I can successfully kill Long Tian, I will have to spend 800 billion. The Taotai clan was already in such a miserable state. Could they withstand such torment? Tao Yongsheng calculated silently. This time, he had to empty the Taotai clan's treasury at least. He even had to dig up 7 or 8 mineral veins to plug this hole. This was bound to make the already miserable Taotai clan even worse. They would be completely dispirited and unable to recover. After taking a deep breath, Tao Yongsheng thought of the even more outrageous price and could not help but roar. The Myriad Demon Alliance is one of the top 3 super forces in the continent. You actually asked for 2 trillion just to kill a high-level godly king of the Dragon Clan? Hu Xinyue, why don't you King Rob? Not far away, Xueshang, who was focused on breaking the sword array, heard his sorrowful roar and could not help but twitch the corner of his mouth and laugh secretly. Haha. This old man is so angry that he has lost his mind. You can continue to act. Soon the Taotai clan's foundation will be emptied. When the time comes, I'll see how you clean up the mess. Although the star-devouring cave was rich in mineral resources and had a unique environmental advantage, it had nurtured many star mineral veins. Those star mineral veins could not be grown in hundreds or thousands of years. A mature star mineral vein that was worth hundreds of billions usually needed 3,000 to 5,000 years to grow. The previous clan leaders of the Taotai clan were not good at management and financial management. Basically, they had been losing money. Although the star-devouring cave had many mineral veins, after thousands of years of losses, the number had been decreasing. Xueshang estimated that in the star-devouring cave, there were only 60 to 70 mineral veins left. That was the limit. Thinking of this, he suddenly thought of a problem and suddenly felt a little distressed. Tao Yongsheng has gone mad with anger. He did not care about the long-term plans of the future. He did not hesitate to pay a huge price to take revenge. If he loses all the mineral veins in the star-devouring cave, even if I rob the star-devouring cave in the future, won't it be a desert? Starting from scratch, from nothing to something, won't I have to wait thousands of years for a new mineral vein to be born? Thinking of this, Xueshang suddenly felt his chest tighten. His eyes were full of hatred as he looked at Tao Yongsheng. After leaving the gushing sun lake, Ji Tianqing continued to fly north. He thought that since Xueshang and Tao Yongsheng had both made the heavenly oath, this grudge was considered to be over. Next, He continued to rush to the Golden Rock Clan's 9 mystical cave. It should be very smooth. The sword of burial of heaven flew high in the sky. He entered the sword world again and returned to the distorted spacetime to deal with the spoils of war. He was very satisfied with the result of the battle at the Gushing Sun Lake. Fortunately, he had broken through before the battle and reached the 6th level of the Divine King realm. His strength had increased by 6 to 7 times. In addition, he had set up the sky-destroying sword formation in advance and the heaven-killing soul transference that he had carefully prepared. Only then could he catch Xueshang and Tao Yongsheng off guard and completely suppress them. The gains of this battle were basically in line with his expectations. Chapter 3656. From the beginning, Ji Tianqing knew that Tao Yongsheng had the primordial chaos bell, and Xueshang must also have a divine weapon of the same grade. In addition, these two patriarchs were old monsters who had cultivated for more than 20,000 years, and both had the strength of a 9th-level divine king. With his current strength, means, and equipment, it was basically impossible to kill Tao Yongsheng and Xueshang. Only by using the sword formation ambush and poison sneak attack could he defeat and suppress the two of them. If it was a head-on confrontation, he would definitely not be able to defeat Xueshang and Tao Yongsheng. So, from the beginning, his target was those elders and priests. In the distorted space under the blood flame sacred tree, Ji Tianqing spent half a day before he finished sorting out the spatial rings of the high priest and the 3 elders of the Taotai clan. All the wealth of these 4 divine kings was sorted by him and put into the spatial rings. With a rough estimate, the wealth of these 4 added up to more than 2 trillion. Most of the wealth was in the form of ores and divine stones, followed by elixirs, materials, and divine weapons. Seeing the many divine weapons refined by the high priest and the 3 elders, Ji Tianqing could not help but shake his head and sigh. Star-devouring grotto heaven has so many ores and metal veins. It's simply a paradise for divine craftsmen. The attainments of these few fellows in artifact refinement simply can't be complimented. This is truly a reckless waste of God's gifts. There were many precious metals and refining materials, and with advanced refining techniques, they could be refined into king-grade upper divine weapons. In the end, the high priest and the 3 elders' refining skills were too ordinary, and they could not utilize the effects of the materials, only refining king-grade middle divine weapons. There was also a small portion of top refining materials that could be refined into king-grade upper divine weapons. In the end, the high priest and the 3 elders used them to refine king-grade upper divine weapons, just to ensure the success rate of refining. If this was not a waste, then what was? Ji Tianqing decided that when he had time, he must reforge all the divine weapons they refined. At that time, he would use those precious refining materials to refine more and higher quality divine weapons. Of course, the matter of upgrading the sword of burial of heaven could also be put on the agenda. Ji Tianqing had already calculated that it was impossible to restore the sword of burial of heaven to king-grade upper divine weapon with the current conditions. He could only upgrade it to king-grade upper divine weapon, and he needed 22 precious refining materials. Fortunately, he had already accumulated a few materials, and this time he plundered more than 10 materials from the spoils of war. The spoils of war. After careful calculation, he still needed 5 materials to upgrade the sword of burial of heaven's quality. First, to upgrade the sword of burial of heaven's quality. Then I can upgrade the sword's grade. Judging from the current situation, I might be able to recover to the 7th layer of the Divine King realm in a few years. Ji Tianqing silently calculated, and a gratified smile appeared on his face. However, what he was to do it. It was to recuperate and restore his divine power, and refine the high priest and the 3 elders' divinity fragments. He first took out a large number of dawn stones and divine pills to recuperate and restore his divine power. Half a month later, he had recovered to his peak condition and started to refine the 4 divinity fragments. Ever since he obtained the devouring divine ability, he had refined many monarch and god king divinity fragments to upgrade his strength. This time, the divinity fragments he had obtained were of the highest grade and the most powerful ones. The 3 elders, including Tao Yuxing, actually all had the strength of a high divine king. The grand priest was a LV9 divine king realm expert. If Ji Tianqing had not broken through to the 6th-level God King realm, set up the heaven-punishing sword formation, and used the heaven-killing soul transference poison, it was basically impossible for him to kill a 9th-level God King. Therefore, this was the first time he had obtained a 9th-level God King's divinity. In the process of refining the divinity fragments, the speed of his improvement had obviously increased. Especially the number of divine Tao laws contained in the 4 divinity fragments had far surpassed before. If it were in the past, Ji Tianqing only needed 1 to 2 months to refine the 4 divinity fragments. But this time he actually spent a full half a year's time. Of course, after circulating and refining for half a year, the improvement effect was still very obvious. He had clearly just broken through to the 6th-level God King realm, but reached the middle stage 6th-level realm. His strength had increased by 3 times. At the same time, he stripped 30 types of divine Tao laws from the 4 divinity fragments. Currently, the number of divine Tao laws he had grasped had reached a shocking 610. Generally speaking, only 9th-stage realm divine king experts were able to grasp so many divine Tao laws. Even if it was a peak divine king, they tended to only grasp 700 over laws too. Him in his previous life as the world-renowned Kenshin only grasped 1,000 divine Tao laws. And now, he was only at the 6th-level God King realm and already grasped so many divine Tao laws. What was certain was that the number of divine Tao laws he could grasp in this life absolutely far surpassed his past life. Ji Tianqing was in close seclusion in the distorted spacetime for more than half a year. But only 4 days had passed in the outside world. After ending cultivation, he asked the burial of heaven via divine soul voice transmission. Knowing that everything was normal and that nobody was tailing and pursuing, only then did he continue to cultivate with ease. Following that, he retrieved the 9 heavens divine cauldron from the divine medicine pavilion in Kenshin's tomb. Following that, he took out the materials and supplementary materials required to refine the 9 revolution stellar rhythm pill, and started refining the 9 revolution stellar rhythm pill under the blood flame sacred tree. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Ji Tianqing sat cross-legged, his eyes clear and his expression unruffled like an ancient well. Both hands formed divine seals, firing out rays of divine light continuously. The 9 heavens divine cauldron transformed into a radius of 100 feet, suspended in midair, rotating slowly, treasure light flickering. Divine fire lingered inside the cauldron, with unparalleled berserk divine power surging. Ji Tianqing displayed his pill refining skills step by step, fully focused on refining the divine pill. The 9 revolution stellar rhythm pill was one of the most difficult to refine among the high-grade king-level divine pills. He had to concentrate fully and not allow the slightest mistake. Of course, this would take a long time, definitely not something that could be completed in 2 or 3 months. Unknowingly, 9 days had passed since the battle between Ji Tianqing, Xueshang and Tao Yongsheng. With Xueshang's tireless efforts and Tao Yongsheng's cooperation, the 2 of them finally broke through the Heaven Punishment Sword formation. Of course, the main reason they could break through the Heaven Punishment Sword formation in just a few days was that Ji Tianqing had taken hundreds of divine weapons and divine swords with him when he left. Those were all used as the foundation of the formation to strengthen the power of the sword formation. Since Ji Tianqing had taken them with him, the power of the sword formation would naturally weaken. Moreover, without more divine power injected into the sword formation, and without Ji Tianqing to maintain the operation of the sword formation, the sword formation would only rely on itself to operate and absorb the divine power of heaven and earth, further weakening its power. Because of this, Xueshang and Tao Yongsheng could quickly break through the Heaven Punishment Sword formation. That's right, they had blasted a hole in the sword formation and escaped through the hole, not really breaking through the sword formation. If they wanted to break through the Heaven Punishment Sword formation, they would have to spend at least 10 times more time. Wonderful book house. Chapter 3657. Phew. I finally escaped. That goddamn bastard. There will come a day when I will grind his bones and scatter his ashes. Xueshang and Tao Yongsheng, who had just escaped from the Heaven Punishment Sword formation, stood above the surging sun lake, panting heavily. Xueshang was fine. He quickly took out a divine elixir to suppress the poison in his body and quickly recover his divine power. Tao Yongsheng, on the other hand, turned his head to look at the heaven punishment sword formation above the lake and cursed angrily. Xueshang glanced at him and said indifferently, "Why do you only remember the words turn him into ashes? In these 9 days I have heard it more than 100 times. My ears are getting calluses. Old Tao, can you change the words?" Tao Yongsheng did not speak. He just stared at him with a black face. Xueshang continued, "Besides, you and your clansmen can't kill him. Even if you want to kill Long Tian, it will be the masters of the various territories and the experts of the Thousand Demon Alliance. You want to turn him into ashes with your own hands? Just give up on that idea." Tao Yongsheng said expressionlessly, "I have already made an agreement with the Great Elder, Hu Xinhua. No matter who killed Long Tian, he will be turned into ashes." "Is that so? Hu Xinhua is so easy to talk to?" Xueshang looked at him with surprise. Tao Yongsheng's face twitched. He gritted his teeth and said, "The condition is to increase the bounty by another 5 billion. Xueshang could not help but roll his eyes. He cupped his hands and said, "You are rich. Take your time. I still have to go back and circulate my energy to treat the poison and help the right guardian dispel the poison and heal his injuries." After that, he bowed to Tao Yongsheng and got ready to leave. Tao Yongsheng frowned and asked with a gloomy face, "Xueshang, you really don't want to join forces with me? You are in a hurry to leave?" Xueshang spread out his hands and said, "Anyway, we can't do anything. You have also issued a bounty. Naturally, someone will kill him. Why should I stay here?" Tao Yongsheng glanced at him coldly and said with a sneer, "Are you scared by him? Are you scared and don't dare to take revenge? Don't you care about the loss of the Chongqi clan and the loss of face? Can you still hold your head high in the future?" Xueshang curled his lips disapprovingly and said, "Whatever you say, I will not participate in this matter. You have already tricked me once. How can I let you trick me a second time? If I could turn back time, I would rather give up your money and conditions than sacrifice the left guardian and the 3 elders." To Xueshang, the left protector and the 3 elders were his left and right arms. They were godly king experts that could not be bought with 2 trillion in wealth. Tao Yongsheng looked at him with a sharp gaze and sneered, "He very good. Xueshang, you may be shameless and have no backbone, but I do. Let's wait and see." After that, he left Shang. Xueshang looked at his back and shouted, "Don't forget the money you owe me in those conditions. You can't leave out a single one." "Humph." Tao Yongsheng snorted and left without looking back. Xueshang sneered and thought to himself, "Old man, I will let you be proud for a few days. When I take over the star-devouring grotto heaven, I will see your expression." Then he turned and left, returning to the star-cloud grotto heaven. The northwest of the star source continent was originally remote. It was not as prosperous as the central part of the continent. Since the rise of the Myriad Demon League, this region had been peaceful for hundreds of years. The territorial masters of more than 30 regions, many first-rate forces, and experts were in awe of the Myriad Demon League. They did not dare to cause any trouble. However, in recent days the northwest regions, which had been peaceful for hundreds of years, had become lively. This was because the Myriad Demon League had issued a bounty to the 32 regions in the Northwest region. The Myriad Demon League had issued a bounty of 2 king-grade upper divine artifacts and 50 billion divine stones to kill a divine king of the dragon clan named Long Tian. This person had the strength of an upper divine king. He was sinister, cruel, and cunning. He was very difficult to deal with. It was recommended that only experts with the strength of a middle divine king and above could accept this mission. Anyone who completed the mission and killed Long Tian would be rewarded with another 50 billion divine stones. When this bounty spread in the 32 regions, it caused an uproar. Hundreds of millions of Demon Clan experts and experts discussed it. Countless people were asking about the background and identity of the Dragon Clan's divine king. Why did he have enmity with the Myriad Demon League? Where was this person now? For a moment, countless first-rate forces and divine king experts were discussing this matter. A bounty worth over 100 billion divine stones was the first time it had appeared in the past few hundred years. It caused countless divine king experts to be restless. Even those upper divine kings with hundreds of billions of divine stones were very tempted and looked forward to it. After all, this bounty was too generous and attractive. In the bounty that the Myriad Demon League had announced, there was a portrait of Long Tian and a brief introduction of him. However, anyone who had seen the bounty would remember it. After all, the latter part of the bounty stated that anyone who could provide Long Tian's whereabouts and information would be rewarded with hundreds of millions or billions of divine stones. Killing Long Tian was a matter for middle divine kings and upper divine kings. However, there was no threshold for providing information and clues. Anyone could do it. For a moment, the 32 regions in the northwestern region were in a frenzy. Countless divine lords, divine kings, and forces heard the news and moved to search for Long Tian's whereabouts. As for the name Long Tian, it quickly became known by everyone, and it was praised by everyone. During this period of time, countless demon clan citizens in the empires would see forces after forces searching for something all over the world. When the forces met, they would often mention the two words Long Tian. Suddenly, many demon clan citizens in the empires also began to spread rumors. Everyone believed that the divine king called Tianqing was a cruel and evil person who committed all kinds of crimes. The Myriad Demon League wanted to uphold justice for Tianqing. There were actually countless citizens praying and hoping that the Myriad Demon League would succeed as soon as possible and kill the evil Long Tian. 12 days after the battle at the Gushing Sun Lake, the Sword of Burial of Heaven flew continuously. It had already crossed 2 regions and entered the Icy Pine region. This place was in the north of the continent. It was still 4 regions away from the Golden Rock Tribe's 9 mystical caves. Simply put, Ji Tianqing was already more than halfway to the 9 mystical caves. At this moment, he had already been in the distorted space-time and focused on refining pills for an entire year. After more than 360 days of refining, the 9-turn-star rhythm pill was finally completed. Swoosh! When the 9-heaven cauldron opened, 9 streaks of crimson red, dark green, and dark gold divine light shot up into the sky. There were actually the roars of dragons and phoenixes from within the divine cauldron. The sun and moon rotated in the sky, and billions of stars flickered. An extremely vast and mighty aura surged out from the divine cauldron. The surging divine power aura also spread out from the divine cauldron. When the space was distorted, it swept up 5-colored air waves. Under such a phenomenon, a thumb-sized pill with dazzling starlight slowly rose up. Chapter 3658. Based on the color, texture, pill patterns, medicinal efficacy and charm, they are all top-notch. Under the blood flame sacred tree, Ji Tianqing held the 9 revolution star rhyme pill in his hand and carefully observed it, revealing a gratified smile. Even though he had the strength of the 6th king god layer, he was still able to refine the 9-turn stellar rhythm pellet. This caused his divine power and mind to be greatly exhausted. Now his divine power was exhausted, and his mind was exhausted. Furthermore, the time required to concoct this pill was also slightly longer. Took an entire year. But this was the first time he refined the 9 revolution star rhyme pill in his life, and he succeeded without a hitch. Moreover, the 9 revolution stellar rhyme pill that was refined was of exceptional quality. This was enough to make him feel gratified and satisfied. It's a pity that my strength has increased explosively in the past year. My progress is too fast, and I'm afraid that my foundation will be shaky. If he were to consume the 9-turn stellar rhyme pellet now, even if he could reach the peak of the 6th heavenly god realm, it would be hard for him to break through the bottleneck and reach the 7th heavenly god realm. On the contrary, it will further exacerbate the problem of a weak foundation, leading to problems in subsequent cultivation. Ji Tianqing held the 9 revolution star rhyme pill, and frowned for a while before putting it into a treasure box and storing it in his space ring. Forget it, I should consolidate my strength first. It won't be too late to take this pill after my foundation is solid. Ji Tianqing put away the divine pellet and the 9 heavens divine cauldron. He flew up into the void and circled around the Shui Yin sacred tree. After observing everyone's cultivation, he received a few more pieces of good news. First, it was Lin Shui's or God Blood Illusion and the rest. Their powers had increased tremendously and they were improving rapidly. In the past, they had cultivated in the divine battleship. The environment and resources there were very ordinary. Now, under the distorted spacetime and the blood flame sacred tree, the cultivation environment could be said to be excellent, and the resources were endless. It was only natural for them to increase their strength quickly. Ji Tianqing looked at Monarch God Blood Illusion, who was at the 9th level of the Divine Monarch realm, and then looked at the towering blood flame sacred tree. A thoughtful look flashed across his eyes. The second piece of good news was that White Dragon, Black Dragon, Qianyu, and Wushuang already reached the 9th level Divine Lord realm. Currently, they were cultivating diligently to strengthen their foundations and prepare to break through to the Divine King realm. Ever since they had followed Ji Tianqing into the God world, they rarely had the chance to show their faces. They spent almost all of their time cultivating in the distorted space-time, desperately improving their strength. Even if there were times when he was tired from training and encountered bottlenecks and shackles, he could only move around in the distorted space-time and communicate with others and confide in them. This was because Ji Tianqing had once said that only when they reached the God King realm would they have the qualifications to roam the God world. And now they were not far from the Divine King realm. As for the Zhenhong who improved the slowest, he also reached peak 8th level Divine Lord and was still silently working hard. The third piece of good news was that Jiku, Yunyao, and Lan'er had all broken through. Lan'er had been stuck at the first tier of the Divine King realm for many years. She then cultivated in the distorted space for dozens of years before she successfully broke through to the second tier of the Divine King realm. But Jiku and Yunyao were different. They were already at the 3rd level of the God King realm. Both of them had their own fortuitous encounters and inheritances, except for the time when they were trying to break through to the God King realm. After reaching the God King realm, they no longer had any restrictions or bottlenecks, and their strength soared all the way. Such an exaggerated speed of improvement gave even Ji Tianqing a shock, let alone Chao Qingyu and Yank. These two people's improvement was relatively slow, and they had not broken through yet. However, they were not in a hurry and felt that it was normal. Which God King powerhouse in this world did not spend hundreds or thousands of years before they could break through to the next tier. Only Ji Tianqing's family was not normal, and that was why they were so terrifying. After checking on everyone's situation, Ji Tianqing went to visit Peng Fei and Bai Feng. These two people had been circulating their energy to recuperate for so long, and their injuries had mostly recovered. They were still recuperating in peace. Ji Tianqing did not disturb them. After secretly checking on the situation, he quietly left. Next, he used divine telekinesis voice transmission to converse with Buried Heaven. Burial of Heaven, where are we now? Burial of Heaven's voice quickly sounded in his mind. We just entered the freezing pine region today, and we are still far from the 9 mystical caves heaven. We still need about half a month. The situation was in line with Ji Tianqing's expectations. He asked again, have there been any abnormalities in the past few days? Burial of Heaven was silent for a moment, then answered, when we passed by the cities of the various regions and empires, we heard some rumors. The God King powerhouses of the surrounding regions have all appeared recently, as if they are looking for something. There are also many top factions that have sent large groups of powerhouses to search for something. When Ji Tianqing stayed in the Sword World and entered the Divine Pagoda to cultivate, Burial of Heaven traveled alone. Everyone's safety was tied to it. Therefore, it became especially cautious and vigilant. It normally would not fly at full speed, and would constantly monitor the situation within tens of thousands of miles while traveling. If there was any movement or abnormality, it would be able to discover it in advance and inform Ji Tianqing. In this way, it passed through 2 regions and countless empires and cities, and naturally gathered some information. However, it did not stop to specifically scout for information, so it was not clear about the specific situation. Ji Tianqing frowned and thought for a moment, then said calmly, the world is too big, and many things happen every day. Perhaps some divine weapon or treasure has appeared in the world, provoking those powerhouses to fight over it. In short, it has nothing to do with us. At this moment, Burial of Heaven was silent for a moment, then suddenly said with a strange tone, this matter is a little strange, and it might have something to do with us. There are people in front, should we ask about the situation? Ji Tianqing was startled for a moment, then hurriedly used his mind to communicate with Burial of Heaven. From Burial of Heaven's perspective, He scouted the surrounding tens of thousands of miles. He immediately saw that burial of heaven was flying above the vast sea of clouds. Below the sea of clouds was a boundless primordial forest, dark green and green, surrounded by clouds and smoke. And in the sky 20,000 miles ahead, there was a dark golden majestic divine warship, flying toward them as fast as lightning. Although the divine warship had a strange shape, and there were pictures and emblems engraved on it. However, after careful observation, Ji Tianqing did not recognize which powerhouse it was, or which faction it belonged to. At the same time, he released his divine sense to envelop the divine warship, wanting to investigate the situation inside. In the end, it turned out to be a king-level high-grade divine warship, protected by a powerful divine array that blocked all probing. Thus, he had burial of heaven change direction, avoiding the divine warship, and probing the other party's intentions. Unexpectedly, the divine warship also changed direction, and accelerated to intercept burial of heaven. Seeing this, Ji Tianqing's eyes flashed with a cold light, and he muttered to himself, "It looks like they're coming for me. I didn't show myself and they only saw burial of heaven. This is most likely not without reason, and it's very likely that there's a previous grudge that hasn't been resolved." Thinking of this, he thought of Tao Yongsheng and Xue Shang, and could not help but frown. Those two fellows have already sworn a heavenly oath, so how dare they continue to pester me? Chapter 36:59. It was a pity that the sword of burial of heaven was only a mid-grade king-grade sword. The majestic dark gold divine ship was a high-grade king-grade divine artifact. In comparison, the speed of the sword of burial of heaven was obviously slower. Both parties had only chased for 10,000 miles when the sword of burial of heaven was caught up by the divine ship. The sword of burial of heaven wanted to start the battle immediately. No matter who was in the divine ship, it would attack them first. However, Ji Tianqing used his divine thought to ask the sword of burial of heaven to stop in the sky and observe the situation. As expected, the divine ship stopped in front of the sword of burial of heaven. Swoosh! Swoosh! A divine light flashed and more than 30 demon clan godly monarchs of different shapes flew out of the divine ship. Most of these godly monarchs had obvious racial characteristics. They were holding sabers, spears, swords, halberds, and various other weapons. They quickly spread out and surrounded the sword of burial of heaven. Immediately after, the divine warship was put away, and 4 powerful and dignified god-king powerhouses appeared. Swoosh! The burly Kuei cow man was surrounded by purple lightning. He was more than 10 feet tall and was the leader of the god kings. He was wearing a pitch-black divine armor and carried a dark purple divine hammer, the size of a millstone, on his back. He exuded a fierce and domineering aura. His strength had already reached the upper-level God-King realm. He was at the 7th-level God-King realm. The other 3 God-King experts were from the Bear Clan, the Wolf Clan, and the Tiger Clan. Their physiques and appearances were different. However, their strengths were similar. They were all 6th-level God-Kings. Such a force placed anywhere on the Starsource continent would be a top-notch force. Even an ordinary domain master might not be comparable to them. However, Ji Tianqing secretly sized them up. He did not recognize the 4 God King experts, nor could he tell their identities and backgrounds. The sword of burial of heaven floated in the sky quietly and motionlessly. More than 30 god monarchs surrounded it as though they were facing a great enemy. They were on high alert. The 4 god kings stared at the sword of burial of heaven for a long time before sneering complacently. The tiger race god king with the character king on his forehead stroked his beard and sneered, "Sect Master, our luck is still good." Previously, in Winterpine Imperial City, those fellows were still high and mighty, each of them solemnly swearing that they would be the first to find Long Tian. "I didn't think that the heavens would favor our scorching sun sect and let us find it first." The other god king of the Wolf Clan had a smug look in his dark green eyes. He said in a sinister tone, "Our sect master is a person of great fortune. The heavens naturally favor him." This brat used all his tricks to evade the encirclement and interception of countless forces and experts, but in the end, he still fell into our hands. Perhaps this is his fate. The stocky god king of the bear race sneered coldly and said in a low, muffled voice, It was not in vain that we used the entire sect's manpower and spent hundreds of millions of resources to buy this crucial piece of information. We will soon see the returns. It was obvious that these three god kings were elders of the Scorching Sun sect. Their leader, the god race male wearing black armor and carrying a divine hammer on his back, was the Scorching Sun sect's sect master. The Scorching Sun sect master did not show any signs of complacency when he heard the three's praises. He carefully examined the sword of burial of heaven for a moment before saying in a low voice, "The appearance, details, and aura of this sword are the same as described in the bounty. This should be Long Tian's sword. Long Tian should be hiding in this sword. I didn't think that this brat would be as arrogant as the rumors say." He offended the 10,000 Demon Alliance and revealed his sword, but he did not hide it and even used this sword to travel. How confident! When the three god kings heard this, they were about to mock and ridicule him. However, the Scorching Sun sect master said with a serious expression, "From this, it can be seen that this Long Tian's strength and methods are extraordinary. Furthermore, someone who dares to offend the 10,000 Demon Alliance must be a peak expert. Everyone, do not let down your guard. Treat this with caution." The three god kings hurriedly put away their joking expressions and cupped their hands together in obeisance. At this moment, Ji Tianqing, who was in the sword world, heard the conversation between the Scorching Sun sect master and the three god kings clearly. He immediately frowned as a cold light flashed through his eyes. Scorching Sun sect? 10,000 Demon Alliance? Bounty? Naturally, he understood the meaning of the words bounty. However, he had never heard of the Scorching Sun sect or the 10,000 Demon Alliance. Thus, he hurriedly used his consciousness to contact Peng Fei, who was recuperating in the Divine Tower, and asked about the 10,000 Demon Alliance's history and background. Peng Fei was focused on recuperating when he suddenly heard Ji Tianqing's voice and the words, 10,000 Demon Alliance. He immediately woke up. "Senior, didn't we have a grudge with the Chongqi and Taotai clans? Why is the 10,000 Demon Alliance involved? When did you offend the 10,000 Demon Alliance?" The 10,000 Demon Alliance is one of the top super forces in the Star Source continent. They have peak god kings. Peng Fei's tone was filled with shock and deep worry. Evidently, the 10,000 Demon Alliance was extremely famous. Even the 9 Mystical Paradise, Nebula Paradise, and Star-Devouring Paradise could not afford to offend them. Ji Tianqing was also confused, so he asked Peng Fei to give him a simple introduction of the 10,000 Demon Alliance. Only after Peng Fei's explanation did he understand what kind of existence the 10,000 Demon Alliance was. At this moment, the Scorching Sun sect master and the three god kings had run out of patience. They were anxious from waiting and all began to call out, "Long Tian, I am the sect master of the Scorching Sun sect. I have come on the 10,000 Demon Alliance's bounty to take your life. Do you plan on hiding in the sword forever?" The Scorching Sun sect master asked coldly as he looked at the sword of burial of heaven expressionlessly. The god king of the wolf clan sneered and mocked. "Right now, your name and deeds are being spread across the 30 or so regions of the continent. It's said that you've killed many people of the Chongqi and Taotai clans, and have a deep grudge with the 10,000 Demon Alliance. Since you're so arrogant and despotic, why are you acting like a coward now?" The god king of the Tiger clan stroked his beard and sneered disdainfully. "It must be our sect master's peerless might that has scared you silly, right? Ha ha ha, or perhaps you're seriously injured and are hiding in the sword to heal yourself, so you don't dare to show yourself?" Their cold laughter echoed in the sky. The Scorching Sun sect master secretly gave him a look and sent a message. "Long Tian is arrogant and despotic. He's cruel and bloodthirsty. He's definitely not a patient person. If he keeps hiding in the sword and doesn't show himself, he must be seriously injured and weak. This is such a good opportunity. We'll destroy his sword and force him to show himself. Then we'll work together to kill him. We'll grind his bones to dust and take his godhead and belongings back to the 10,000 Demon Alliance for the reward. Third Elder, remember to use a photographic crystal to record the scene of us killing Long Tian and grinding his bones to dust. Take the evidence to the 10,000 Demon Alliance. Only then will they happily pay." The god king of the wolf clan smiled coldly. He bowed slightly and sent a message, "Yes, sect master." Chapter 3660. The Broken Sun Sect Master and the three elders didn't act rashly. They surrounded the Sword of Burial of Heaven and waited for Ji Tianqing to show himself. At the same time, they secretly used divine powers and secret techniques to form a sealing array that sealed off the area within 10,000 miles. This way they could block out divine sense and seal off all movement and shadows. Not only did they have to kill Ji Tianqing, but they also had to guard against other forces who saw the abnormality and came to interfere. Only the Broken Sun Sect could do this. Soon, the sealing formation was completed, and the time it took for an incense stick to burn had passed. The Sword of Burial of Heaven still didn't move. Ji Tianqing still didn't show himself. The three elders couldn't wait any longer. They told the Broken Sun Sect Master to destroy the sword immediately. The Broken Sun Sect Master was about to nod. At this moment, a white light flashed across the Sword of Burial of Heaven. A young man from the dragon tribe in a white robe finally appeared in the sky, his entire body radiating golden light. Whoosh! He stood proudly with the Sword of Burial of Heaven in his right hand. He glanced at the Broken Sun Sect Master and the others and smiled coldly. The Chongqi and Taotai races were bullied and didn't dare to take revenge, so they asked the 10,000 Beast Alliance for help and even issued a bounty. The Broken Sun Sect Master and the three elders were stunned when they saw that Ji Tianqing was unharmed and had a powerful aura and mysterious strength. Immediately after, they all took out their divine weapons and stared at Ji Tianqing with vigilance. Even though they said it casually, they were just trying to encourage themselves. They knew that Long Tian was very strong and they had to fight him with all their might. The Broken Sun Sect Master stared at Long Tian and asked, "If that's the case, do you admit that you're Long Tian?" Ji Tianqing sneered calmly. "That's right. I'm Long Tian. Why wouldn't I admit it?" The Broken Sun Sect Master nodded. "Very good. Even though we want to kill you, I still have to say that you're very courageous." Ji Tianqing didn't want to waste time with him. He said in a deep voice, "Let me see the bounty of the Myriad Demon Alliance." The sect master of the Scorching Sun Sect sneered, "After I kill you, I'll take the bounty to the 10,000 Demon Alliance. How can I show it to you?" Ji Tianqing frowned and asked again, "How much is the bounty of the Myriad Demon Alliance?" The Tiger Race Divine King curled his mouth and said with a cold laugh, "You brat, your death is at hand and you're actually still concerned about the price of the bounty? 2 king-grade high-grade divine artifacts and 50 billion divine stones. If I grind your bones to dust, I'll add another 5 billion god stones. Haha, kid, this is the most expensive bounty in the last few hundred years. You should be proud that you were killed today." Ji Tianqing frowned and was silent. He thought to himself, "I have no grudge against the Myriad Demon Alliance. They can't possibly offer so much wealth as a bounty for me. Tao Yongsheng must have asked the 10,000 Demon Alliance for help because he hates me so much. Haha, I thought I could force them to swear a heavenly oath and this would be the end of the matter. I didn't expect Tao Yongsheng to keep pestering me." He didn't dare to take revenge himself, so he used such a despicable method. "If I knew this would happen, I would have been ruthless and destroyed the star-devouring cave." The sect master of the Scorching Sun Sect and the 3 divine kings saw his gloomy face in silence. They immediately grinned coldly. "Haha, kid, now you know fear? To tell you the truth, the bounty of the Myriad Demon Alliance has spread throughout the 32 northwestern regions. Right now, there are at least a few dozen top forces and more than 100 God King experts who are trying to kill you. However, you have nothing to worry about. Those forces and experts won't have a chance. Just die under our blades and everything will be over." As they spoke, the 4 experts revealed sinister sneers as they raised their swords and sabers one after another. The 30 or so god monarchs around them also crazily gathered their divine power and surged with murderous intent. A great battle was about to break out. Ji Tianqing stood with his sword in hand as he sneered mockingly. "The Scorching Sun Sect. I've never heard of this name before. It must be a sect that has risen in the past 1,000 years, right? There shouldn't be many sects of this scale and foundation on the Star Source continent. A top force is willing to sacrifice the future of their entire sect for a mere 50 billion godstones and 2 high king-grade divine artifacts. Don't you want to reconsider?" Hearing this, the sect master of the Scorching Sun Sect and the 3 elders were stunned. Then the three elders laughed as if they had heard the funniest joke in the world. Ha ha ha. If you're afraid of death, just admit defeat and surrender. Why do you have to be so tactful? Humph. You're about to die and you're still putting on airs? If we kill you, not only will we be able to easily obtain resources and treasures worth hundreds of billions, we'll also be favored by the 10,000 Demon Alliance. This is definitely a great deal. Alright Longtian, let's cut the crap. We'll send you on your way now. The Scorching Sun sect was a rather famous top force in the northwestern region. It was a pity that it was still a small shrimp compared to the behemoth that was the 10,000 Demon Alliance. Treasures and treasures worth hundreds of billions were tempting. However, winning the favor and support of the 10,000 Demon Alliance was what the Scorching Sun sect wanted the most. Kill him. The sect master of the Scorching Sun sect waved his sleeves and raised his hammer as he gave the order. Instantly, over 30 Surgat powerhouses brandished their weapons without any regard for their own safety. They used all sorts of divine abilities and ultimate skills to besiege Ji Tianqing. The sect master of the Scorching Sun sect and the three elders held their weapons tightly and were ready to attack. Once Ji Tianqing was fighting with the god monarchs and revealed even the slightest flaw, they would launch a thunderous attack. However, they miscalculated. Ji Tianqing didn't move at all as the divine lords charged at him. Even though the sky was filled with divine light and shadows, he didn't even look at them. Even when the divine lords were close, he didn't draw his sword. He only smiled disdainfully. Buzz! An invisible divine soul power suddenly burst out of his body and turned into transparent ripples that spread in all directions. Bang 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 bang. In the next moment, an invisible divine soul shockwave swept out in all directions, striking more than 30 divine lord experts. Following a series of muffled sounds, the bodies of the 30-odd Surgods shook violently. Their heads exploded and blood splattered everywhere. They didn't even have time to scream before their divine souls were destroyed and their divine heads shattered. They died on the spot. Plop plop, more than 30 divine lords fell from the sky like dumplings, causing the ground to shake and dust to fly everywhere. It was only at this moment that the divine arts that were falling from the sky landed on Ji Tianqing's body one after another. The surface of his body glowed with a faint golden light, which condensed into a transparent light shield. Despite being bombarded by dozens of divine light shadows, the light shield remained unaffected, not even the slightest bit affected. Just like that, Ji Tianqing stood where he was without moving. He didn't even lift a finger and instantly killed more than 30 Surgods. The sect master of the Scorching Sun sect and the three elders widened their eyes in shock. Chapter 3661. He's actually so valiant? Our sect's 30 over elites. He didn't even lift a finger and they were all killed? This lad is indeed terrifying. The three elders' expressions changed drastically as they gulped and their hearts were filled with terror. They were also God King experts and each of them had the ability and means to kill 30 over God monarchs. But they had to go through a bloody battle and at least display a few moves before they could do it. On the other hand, Ji Tianqing didn't even lift a finger or unsheath his sword. Just a single soul attack was enough to kill 30 over God monarchs. Such ability and means were extremely terrifying. In an instant, Sect Master and the three elders were stunned as they forgot to attack. Especially the three elders, their backs were drenched in cold sweat as they suddenly regretted accepting this mission. At this moment, Ji Tianqing looked at them with a smile and opened his mouth. Originally, you guys were here to kill this king and this battle was baffling. But since you insist on sending yourselves to your deaths, how can this king not grant you your wish? 1 7th stage realm, 3 6th stage realm. Although the quality isn't good, but it's still not bad. It's comparable to 100 years of cultivation. As he said that, he slowly raised the sword of burial of heaven as he started to accumulate god power in his body. Sect Master and the three elders instantly panicked as their gazes darted around and their hearts trembled. The clumsy Bear Clan elder couldn't help but ask, the quality isn't good and it's comparable to 100 years of cultivation? What does he mean? Wolf Clan elder's gaze was chilly as he said in a low voice, perhaps. He wants to eat us and absorb our powers? Tiger Clan elder cursed angrily, this bastard, how dare he belittle us? Just 100 years of cultivation? We've all cultivated for tens of thousands of years. Without waiting for Tiger Clan Elder to finish his words, Ji Tianqing had already made his move. Heavenly Dragon World / Dragon Elephant God Fist. Ji Tianqing suddenly took a step forward as his left fist punched out a huge dragon elephant image, while his right hand slashed out 1,000 feet long golden dragon sword light. In an instant, the roars of dragons and tigers exploded in the sky, deafening everyone. The ferocious dragon elephant fist contained the divine power of 300 laws, and it instantly enveloped the cruel sun sect master along with the divine patterns and shadows of laws. As for the 1,000 Zhonglong saber light that resembled the roar of a golden dragon, it unleashed a might that could cleave apart the heavens and earth as it slashed towards the tiger god king. Boom! With a thunderous boom, the cruel sun sect master was the first to be sent flying. Even though he had used all his strength to cast his ultimate skill, he still couldn't block the draconic elephant divine fist. Blood spurted out of his 7 orifices, and his chest caved in. He flew backward for 300 miles before he finally stopped. Boom! Another muffled explosion erupted. The Tiger Tribe God Monarch's all-out defensive divine ability was instantly sliced apart by the golden dragon saber light. His entire body was split into 2 halves by the saber light. Divine blood spurted out and splashed across the sky. When the corpse fell from the sky and smashed into the ground, there was no more sound. Even his godhead had been sliced into pieces and scattered across the sky. He had died just like that. A dignified 6th-degree realm god king was actually killed by Ji Tianqing in one strike. The Bear Tribe and Wolf Tribe's god kings saw this with their own eyes and were instantly scared out of their wits. They fled in panic. 300 miles away, the severely injured cruel sun sect master was also filled with fear and had thoughts of retreating. Before meeting Long Tian, they were already mentally prepared and knew that Long Tian was very powerful. But when they truly fought with Long Tian, they realized that this wasn't called being very strong, this was called being terrifyingly strong. Even if the bounty was 500 billion, they wouldn't do it, let alone 50 billion. No amount of resources or treasures was more important than their lives. Seeing the cruel sun sect master and the 2 elders fleeing in panic, Ji Tianqing's figure flashed as he teleported beside them and began to chase after them. Since you're here, then stay here. Swoosh! Ji Tianqing shouted coldly as he slashed the burial of heaven at the Wolf Tribe's god king with all his might. Heaven-piercing sword. The sacred sword light that was thousands of feet long carried the divine power of hundreds of laws, as it exploded with a divine power that could destroy everything. It slashed through the sky and struck the Wolf Tribe's god king. Kaboom! With a thunderous explosion, the sword light destroyed all obstacles and killed the Wolf Tribe's god king on the spot, shattering his bones. No matter if it was a divine power or a protective divine armor, they were all useless. After killing the Wolf Tribe's god king in one strike, Ji Tianqing's figure flashed again and he caught up with the Bear Tribe's god king. The Bear Tribe's god king had just escaped to the edge of the ceiling array and was about to escape from danger. However, Ji Tianqing slashed out with the sword of spacetime and created a crack in the void that was tens of thousands of feet long, shattering him into pieces. No matter how he tried to escape, the sword of spacetime had already sealed the space and he couldn't move at all. He could only wait for death. In an instant, the Bear Tribe's god king was also shattered into pieces as his divine spark exploded and he died on the spot. While Ji Tianqing killed the 3 elders, the heavily injured cruel sun sect master escaped from the ceiling array in a wretched state. Whoosh! He flew into the blue sky and rushed to the top of the sea of clouds as fast as he could. He flew into the sky above the vast sea of clouds and was about to take out the divine ship to continue escaping. At this moment a white light flashed before him, and Ji Tianqing appeared out of nowhere. Whoosh! A dazzling sword light expanded and instantly struck the cruel sun sect master. He couldn't dodge in time and could only activate his protective divine light to the limit to block it with all his might. Kaboom! However, it was a pity that the protective divine light was shattered instantly. The king-level high-level divine armor he wore was also dented by the sword light. It became even more tattered. He was sent flying again. His face was covered in blood as he crashed miserably into the sea of clouds. With the king-level high-quality divine armor protecting him, he wasn't killed instantly and luckily survived. However, before he could escape again, Ji Tianqing appeared before him and placed the cold burial of heaven against his neck. Whoosh! The cruel Sun Sect Master instinctively closed his eyes and waited for death to descend. However, the Heaven Burier sword stopped at his shoulder. The blade was only half an inch away from his neck, but it did not slash down. The cruel Sun Sect Master was stunned. He opened his eyes and looked at Ji Tianqing. Why didn't you kill me? Are you going to spare my life? Suddenly realizing something, the cruel Sun Sect Master was overjoyed and emotional. However, Ji Tianqing extinguished his fantasies. Take out your communication jade slip and send a message to the other forces, he said emotionlessly. Report your location and results. The cruel Sun Sect Master was stunned. He couldn't quite react. Report truthfully? Then won't the other forces swarm over and you'll be killed soon? I get it. You want me to fake the news and say that you've been killed so that others won't chase after you, right? The cruel Sun Sect Master thought he was smart and guessed Ji Tianqing's intentions. However, Ji Tianqing denied it. Report truthfully. Only in this way will they continue to send themselves to their deaths once they know of my whereabouts. Chapter 3662. The Scorching Sun Sect Master was dumbfounded. He stared at Ji Tianqing in a daze, not understanding what he meant. Even though he had witnessed and experienced Ji Tianqing's terrifying strength with his own eyes, he was still shocked. However, he still could not understand why Ji Tianqing would expose himself and attract the attention of countless factions and experts. Was this guy tired of living? It seemed like he had just said that they knew where he was, which was why they kept coming to their deaths. The Scorching Sun Sect Master's body trembled when he thought of this. An unparalleled fear surged out of his heart. Heavens! He's actually so arrogant. At this moment, the Scorching Sun Sect Master suddenly understood Ji Tianqing's intentions. He was not seeking his own death. He wanted to lure all the factions and experts over and kill them all. Madman! This Long Tian was definitely a madman. The Scorching Sun Sect Master roared in his heart. His mind and body were filled with fear, and he trembled. Out of instinct, he wanted to shake his head and refuse. However, the bone-chilling killing intent from the pitch-black sword beside his neck cleared his mind. He knew very well what would happen if he didn't do as he was told. Thus, he took out a communication jade slip with trembling hands and sent a message to an elder of the 10,000 Demon Alliance to report the details. After sending the message, he seemed to feel that it was not enough. He took out a few more communication jade slips and sent messages to the other factions. This way, the news that he and the three elders had tried to kill Long Tian but were killed instead would quickly spread. Out of selfishness and ulterior motives, he even said in the communication jade slip that Long Tian had also been severely injured and was fleeing north. After he sent the message, Ji Tianqing's cold voice sounded in his ears again. You lied that I was severely injured and was fleeing north because you wanted those factions to hurry over so that I could kill them one by one. This way, many factions in the northwestern regions would be heavily injured. Even if you were killed and the Scorching Sun Sect's strength was greatly weakened, at least we would have a chance to breathe and not be swallowed up by those factions. Hearing this cold and indifferent voice, the Setting Sun Sect Master's body stiffened and his expression became rather ugly. After a moment of silence, he smiled bitterly and said, As expected, I can't hide anything from you. But this won't do you any harm. And it won't affect your plan, will it? Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and said expressionlessly, That's right. To be precise, what you are doing is equivalent to helping this prince. The Setting Sun Sect Master immediately became excited. Joy appeared on his face as he said with anticipation, Long Tian, I've already guessed your plan and believe in your strength. As long as you spare my life, I will cooperate fully with you. Whether it's acting or helping you deceive others, I can. Evidently, the cruel Sun Sect Master's desire to live was very strong. He would not let go of any chance of survival. However, Ji Tianqing decisively rejected him. No need. With that, he did not give the sect master of the cruel sun sect a chance to speak. The sword of burial of heaven suddenly shone with resplendent light. Shwa! Blood splattered as the setting sun sect master's head flew into the sky. His eyes were still wide open. After destroying the setting sun sect master's body, the sword of burial of heaven unleashed another resplendent beam of sword light. Bang! The setting sun sect master's head exploded. His godhead also shattered and fell from the sky. Ji Tianqing waved his hand and sent out two beams of golden light that swept away the setting sun sect master's godhead fragments and interspatial ring. Then, he returned to the ceiling formation and took away the godhead fragments and interspatial rings of the three elders. After obtaining his spoils of war, he did not clean up the battlefield. Instead, he flew away on the sword of burial of heaven. He did not change his route and continued to advance north. He did not change his method of travel. The sword of burial of heaven still flew high in the sky. He entered the sword world again and returned to the distorted spacetime to deal with his spoils of war. In just 4 hours he finished counting his spoils of war. The setting sun sect master and the three elders all had vast amounts of cultivation resources and treasures in their interspatial rings. Unfortunately, there was only one upper king level material and treasure. Even king grade pills, materials, and treasures were not many in number. There were only a few hundred of them. Fortunately, the 4 god kings had stored enough godstones and materials, which comforted Ji Tianqing. He couldn't help but grumble as he stored all of their belongings into his spatial ring. The setting sun sect master and the three elders have less than 1 trillion in total. That's too shabby. Will they be attracted by the 100 billion reward and come out to kill me? Although Ji Tianqing was a bit disappointed by the wealth and resources worth 1 trillion. However, the 4 godhead fragments could provide him with 100 years of cultivation, which was a bit comforting. After counting his spoils of war, he refined the 4 godhead fragments and absorbed their god power and divine Tao laws. He was full of anticipation for the forces that were about to swarm him. Originally, he didn't want to start a massacre. However, he was entangled with all kinds of grudges. Countless forces and experts were trying to kill him by any means necessary. Since that was the case, he could only turn trash into treasure and make the experts become his resources. The setting sun sect master's message quickly spread among the 10,000 demon alliance and countless forces. If the setting sun sect master had only sent a message to the 10,000 demon alliance, perhaps the 10,000 demon alliance would have kept it a secret and secretly sold this information to make a fortune. However, the setting sun sect master had sent a message to many forces, and the news quickly spread. The 10,000 demon alliance could not hide it even if they wanted to. In just one day, 70 to 80 forces and over 100 god kings knew about Long Tian's whereabouts and the news of the setting sun sect master and the others being killed. Although many people were shocked by Long Tian's strength and ability to kill the setting sun sect master and the three elders, they did not fear or retreat. However, they didn't shrink back because of this, and they became even more enthusiastic and excited instead. All of them rushed towards Freezing Pine region at their fastest speed to kill Long Tian. This was because many forces and experts believed that they were stronger than the Setting Sun sect. Long Tian could kill the 4 god kings of the Setting Sun sect, but he definitely could not kill them. Even those who were weaker than the Setting Sun sect rushed to the Freezing Pine territory to claim the credit. The Setting Sun sect master had clearly revealed a piece of information. Although the 3 elders were killed, he was definitely going to die as well. However, Long Tian's fate was also very bad. He was heavily injured and weak. This piece of information was extremely important. Many forces that were hesitating and watching in the dark joined the army to kill Long Tian. For a time, the entire northwestern region was in chaos. Over 100 forces and close to 200 god kings moved. Everyone rode their divine ships, mounts, and various divine artifacts to the Freezing Pine territory. They were afraid that others would beat them to it. Those who participated in the assassination thought about the reward worth hundreds of billions and the praise and favor of the 10,000 Demon Alliance. No one knew what awaited them. Chapter 3663. A day passed quickly. The Sword of Burial of Heaven was in the south of the Frost Pine region, and was about to enter the Azure Pine Empire's territory. At this moment, Ji Tianqing had been cultivating in seclusion for 50 days in the distorted spacetime. He had refined and absorbed the divine fragment of the Cruel Sun sect master and the three elders. Not only had his strength increased, but he had also gained a few more divine Tao laws. After refining the divine fragment, he did not stop cultivating. He continued to nourish his divine Tao foundation. However, at this moment the Sword of Burial of Heaven slowed down and stopped in the sky. It was surrounded by a sea of clouds and an endless plain below. In front of the Sword of Burial of Heaven, there were more than 20 divine lords in a battle formation. They were Kenshin soldiers and were filled with killing intent. At the front of the battle formation were 3 divine kings. They were all holding strange weapons and had cold smiles on their faces. It was clear that the first group of assassins had arrived after the Cruel Sun sect master spread the news. Long Tian, stop hiding in the divine sword and come out to die. I don't know if I should call you arrogant or stupid. The news of your battle with the Cruel Sun sect master has already spread throughout the regions. I didn't think that you would continue to use your sword without any disguise. Ha ha ha. Even if you are a noble member of the dragon race, even if you are powerful, it is useless now. You are already heavily injured. Stretch out your neck and die. The 3 godly kings of the monster clan of different races and appearances shouted loudly as they spread out and surrounded the Heaven Burier sword. At this moment, the Sword of Burial of Heaven used its divine sense to awaken Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing ended his cultivation without hesitation and left the distorted spacetime. It has only been a day, and someone has already come to die. It looks like I will be busy for a few days and won't have time to rest. As this thought flashed through his mind, Ji Tianqing appeared in the sky. He had a proud expression as he held the Sword of Burial of Heaven. His body flashed with golden light as divine power gathered in his body. The 3 divine kings stared at him for a moment and were shocked to see that he was safe and sound. You are not injured? This is impossible. You were clearly heavily injured by the sect master of the Cruel Sun sect and the others, and your strength is weak. He must be faking it, bluffing. Don't be afraid. The 3 divine kings were filled with vigilance and were secretly on guard. They were just about to report their identities and origins to further probe Ji Tianqing's background. Unexpectedly, Ji Tianqing didn't waste any time. He didn't even ask about their origins and backgrounds, and directly swung his sword to kill them. 10 directions absolute shadows. Dazzling white light burst out from his body as 6 clones appeared in an instant. They scattered in the sky and surrounded the god kings and god monarchs. Then, his original body and the 6 clones all wielded the Sword of Burial of Heaven, and used different divine abilities to surround and kill. Heaven-cleaving sword. 7-star sword. Broken moon sword. Dragon elephant divine fist. Sword through heaven. 10,000 swords returned to origin. In an instant, a dazzling rainbow light shone and enveloped an area of 10,000 miles. The crisscrossing sharp sword auras carried an unparalleled power and sword intent as they shot toward the 3 god kings and more than 20 god monarchs. A one-sided massacre with a great disparity in power began. Bang bang bang. Rumble rumble rumble. Ah. In the next moment, a deafening explosion of thunder and miserable howls of despair erupted in the sky, resounding through the clouds. In just one breath, the 20 mid-level and high-level god monarchs were all killed and turned into ashes. 2 seconds later, the 3 god kings were killed by the 7 Ji Tianqing on the spot. All of them were crushed and their divine heads were shattered. The battle quickly ended. 10 seconds later, the deafening explosions and the light of the divine arts that covered the sky quickly dissipated. Everything returned to normal. Other than the ruins, there were also corpses, remains and blood in the ruins, which proved that a great battle had taken place here. The Sword of Burial of Heaven continued to fly north at the same speed as before. Ji Tianqing returned to the distorted spacetime to count the spoils of war. For hours later, he finished counting the spoils of war. A 7th level high-level god king and 2 5th and 6th level mid-level god kings. The total wealth of the 3 of them is only about 600 billion. Why are they even poorer than the Broken Sun sect? Let's hope that the people who come to die later will be stronger and have stronger families. Ji Tianqing put away the spoils of war with disappointment and started to devour the divine head fragments. This time it took less time to refine the divine head fragments. In merely half a month he devoured 3 godhead fragments and seized 3 types of divine Tao laws. At this time the sword of burial of heaven stopped again. The voice of the burial of heaven sounded in his mind again. Someone else is coming. Ji Tianqing ended his cultivation with a trace of anticipation and left the distorted spacetime. A moment later, he appeared at the top of the sea of clouds, holding the sword of burial of heaven and looking at the people in front of him. There were more than 40 demon race experts in this group. Among them, there were 36 Divine Lord Realm powerhouses. The other 5 were all Divine Kings. Divine Lord Realm monsters were all disregarded by Ji Tianqing. His gaze fell on the 5 God Kings and sized them up expressionlessly. 2 high-level God Kings and 3 mid-level God Kings. Not bad, this is interesting. Ji Tianqing muttered to himself and thought, if these people are from the same faction, then this faction should be one of the top in the Star Source continent. Even if they are not as strong as the 10,000 Demon Alliance, they should at least be one of the top factions in the Northwest, one level higher than the Broken Sun sect. In fact, he had guessed correctly. The leader of the Moon Rhinoceros clan's God King stared coldly at Ji Tianqing. He said in a deep voice, Long Tian, your whereabouts have already been grasped by countless forces. Who knows how many God King experts are hunting you down? You are alone and heavily injured. You will die without a doubt. Don't make any meaningless struggles and resistance. Accept your death obediently. This credit belongs only to our Pil Sun Palace. This Moon Rhinoceros God King was the Vice Palace Master of the Pil Sun Palace, and the second strongest person in the sect. His tone was full of confidence. The other 4 God Kings were also full of confidence. They looked at Ji Tianqing as if they were looking at a dead man. Ji Tianqing disdained to refute and was too lazy to explain anything. He did not waste any time and used his ultimate skill again to attack the people of the Pil Sun Palace. Absolute shadows of the 10 directions. With a cold shout, his body lit up with a dazzling white light and 6 doppelgangers appeared around him. In the next moment, he and the 6 doppelgangers waved the sword of burial of heaven and used different ultimate skills to attack. Heavenly Dragon Palm, Heavenly Dragon Slash, Blade of Space-Time, Sky-Piercing Finger, Sword of Daytime. Suddenly, a dazzling 5-colored divine light illuminated the world. The destructive sword light and the divine power of hundreds of laws poured down on the people of the Pil Sun Palace. Book Guest House Reading Website. Chapter 3664. The 36 Divine Lords of the Pil Sun Palace were all battle-hardened elites. They immediately formed a battle formation and jointly released their divine power to form a huge defensive shield. The 5 Divine Lords were also calm as they activated their divine weapons and magic treasures. They used all kinds of divine powers and secret techniques to neutralize and block Ji Tianqing's attacks. Even so, however, all of their efforts were futile and useless. The defensive light shield formed by the 36 gods was instantly shattered into pieces by the sword lights that filled the sky. Then they were also torn to pieces by the crisscrossing sword light. Blood splattered all over the sky. Then Ji Tianqing and the 6 doppelgangers' divine powers collided with the divine powers of the 5 divine lords, resulting in an earth-shattering explosion. In an instant, the divine powers of the 5 divine lords were shattered. Fragments of divine light and shockwaves spread out in all directions. The 5 divine lords were all lightly injured and were pushed back thousands of feet or dozens of miles. Ji Tianqing and the 6 doppelgangers quickly caught up and attacked with all their might. The 5 divine lords were forcefully separated and could not join forces to fight back. It was difficult for them to exert more combat strength. Originally, they had the advantage in numbers and were besieging Ji Tianqing alone. But now it was Ji Tianqing and the 6 doppelgangers who were besieging them. Even more ironic was that even if the doppelgangers were only half as strong as Ji Tianqing, the 5 divine lords could not defeat them. After 2 or 3 moves, the 5 divine lords were defeated. They were killed one after another, and their godheads were shattered. From the beginning of the battle, less than 20 breaths had passed, and it was over. The loud explosion reverberated in the sky. The dazzling divine light soon dissipated. The 6 doppelgangers quickly picked up the godhead fragments and interspatial rings of the 5 divine lords and returned to Ji Tianqing. Then Ji Tianqing put away the spoils and the 6 doppelgangers. He returned to the sword world to deal with the spoils. The sword of burial of heaven continued its journey and flew north as usual. In the next 3 days, the situation was just as Ji Tianqing had expected. He was either fighting with others or sorting out the spoils of war. There was almost no time for him to cultivate. Almost every few hours, the sword of burial of heaven would be stopped by a group of assassins. Now Ji Tianqing's whereabouts en route had been known by countless forces. When the assassins arrived at the frigid pine region, they would often be able to wait for the hair to come out of a tree stump. Moreover, Ji Tianqing had been using the sword of burial of heaven. He did not disguise or change. The heaven-bearing sword's characteristics were very distinct. The Divine King powerhouses of the various factions recognized it very easily. On the first day, Ji Tianqing encountered 4 groups of assassins. Every group had different numbers and strengths. The smaller groups had 2 or 3 god kings, while the larger groups had 6 or 7 god kings. The strongest ones were 7th stage realm upper-level god kings. The divine lords of God of heaven divine lords were, of course, divine lords below divine king realm. No matter how many there were, Ji Tianqing ignored them. Ji Tianqing's method of dealing with these assassins was also very simple and crude. After meeting, without saying a word, he directly created 6 clones and started killing. No group of assassins could withstand it. Not only could they not injure him at all, they did not even have the chance to escape. Just like this, Ji Tianqing killed his way to the north. On the second day, the divine lords of heaven divine lords who came to kill Ji Tianqing were clearly much smarter. Probably because those divine lords knew that Ji Tianqing killed many divine lords along the way, so they were very cautious. They would often set up traps, ambushes and god arrays in advance on Ji Tianqing's route, waiting for Ji Tianqing to walk right into the trap. The sword of burial of heaven would make a preliminary judgment on those traps and ambushes. If there was no danger, simple and crude traps and ambushes, it would directly ignore them. Once it encountered a more advanced, complicated and dangerous ambush, it would sense the danger in advance and take a detour. Those assassins were helpless and could only take the initiative to charge out and intercept the sword of burial of heaven. At this time, Ji Tianqing would appear again and kill them easily. Just like this, 1 day, 2 days, 3 days passed. After 3 days, the sword of burial of heaven left the winter pine region. At this time, Ji Tianqing had already killed 16 forces, about 70 divine kings and 400 divine lords. Those divine lords were negligible. He had already obtained more than 70 divine personas fragments, in addition to countless cultivation resources and treasures. With a rough estimate, the wealth of those 70 divine kings added up to more than 14 trillion. In addition to the cultivation resources and treasures in his interspatial ring, the total value was close to 20 trillion. Without a doubt, this was the moment in Ji Tianqing's life when he had the most resources and treasures. With such a large amount of cultivation resources, it was not only enough for him to recover to peak divine king, but also for the people around him to cultivate to the divine king realm. With such a large amount of cultivation resources, he could even establish a top sect and force. However, he knew that this was just the beginning. Currently, only a small portion of the divine kings he had killed were the territorial lords of the various regions and first-rate forces of the various regions. The true experts had yet to appear. Myriad Demon Alliance. It was the Myriad Demon Alliance that issued the bounty. But until now, no divine king from the Myriad Demon Alliance has taken action. I have already killed for 3 days, destroyed so many forces and killed so many divine kings. The Myriad Demon Alliance should have received the news and made a response. In the distorted space-time, Ji Tianqing sat cross-legged under the bloody flame sacred tree and silently calculated. From the beginning, he did not take the divine kings of the ordinary forces and the territorial lords of the various regions seriously. His target had always been the experts of the Myriad Demon Alliance. The current situation was just as Ji Tianqing expected. In 3 days he had destroyed 16 forces and killed more than 70 divine kings in the freezing Pine region. The news had already spread throughout the various regions in the northwest. For a time, the various regions in the northwest were in a state of panic. Countless territorial lords and forces were terrified. Many forces that were lying in ambush on Ji Tianqing's path were so frightened that they lost their spirit and fled. The Azure Snow region was to the north of the freezing Pine region. Originally, there were more than 30 forces lying in ambush in various parts of the Azure Snow region, waiting to kill Ji Tianqing. However, after the news spread, more than half of them fled overnight. Only a dozen or so forces were unwilling to leave. When the various forces received the bounty, they were mentally prepared and knew that Long Tian was very strong. However, no one knew how strong he was. Now they finally got the answer. He was an expert that they could not afford to offend. It was that simple. As for the dozen or so forces that were unwilling to leave, they were obviously divine kings with deep foundations and stronger strength. Among them, there were a dozen territorial lords and a few experts from top forces. They were unwilling to leave, but they would not act rashly. Forced by the situation, they actually contacted each other and discussed forming an alliance to deal with Long Tian together. There was also a rumor that the Myriad Demon Alliance was enraged, and that a big shot had personally taken action to kill Long Tian. After all, the bounty was issued by the Myriad Demon Alliance. Long Tian was invincible and killed countless divine kings along the way, turning the various regions in the northwest upside down. The Myriad Demon Alliance had to take action to suppress him, or their dignity would be lost. Chapter 3665. The news spread through various regions in the northwest, attracting the attention of many people. Countless forces and God King experts were looking forward to the battle between the experts of the Myriad Demon Alliance and Long Tian. Ji Tianqing, who was in the distorted space-time, counting the spoils of war and refining the Godhead fragments, didn't know about this for now. He only felt that it was a little strange. Ever since he killed the previous group of people, no one had made a move to kill him for an entire day. He was used to having a fierce battle every few hours. Suddenly it was quiet and smooth for an entire day. He was actually not used to it. The most important thing was, an entire day had passed in the outside world. He had already been in closed-door cultivation in the distorted space-time for 50 days. In these 50 days he refined 12 Godhead fragments. His strength continued to increase and the number of God Tao laws he had mastered increased. His strength had also increased by several times. My route hasn't changed and my whereabouts have been exposed to various forces. But all of a sudden, no one came to kill me. Ji Tianqing temporarily stopped cultivating and sat cross-legged under the blood-flame sacred tree, deep in thought. Looks like I've successfully deterred the other forces by killing so many forces previously. Most of them are terrified and don't dare to make a move to kill me. Of course, there's another possibility. The real experts are about to make a move. The current situation was basically in line with Ji Tianqing's expectations. He could also guess that the people who would make a move to kill him would most likely be Thousand Demon Alliance experts. However, he wasn't afraid or worried at all. With his current strength, even if he met a 9th stage God King expert, he would have the ability to fight. Even if a peak God King made a move, as long as it wasn't an ambush or a siege, even if he couldn't win, he had the ability to protect himself. In one day at most, the 10,000 Demon Alliance will show up. After coming to this conclusion, he didn't think about this matter anymore and continued to refine the Godhead fragments. Green Snow Region, Wild Goose Mountain Range. It was the middle of winter. Heavy snow fluttered in the air and the sky was shrouded by endless lead clouds. The cold wind whistled between heaven and earth. The north wind was biting cold like a knife, turning water into ice. The sword of burial of heaven pierced through the boundless sea of clouds and was about to fly over Wild Goose Mountain Range. But at this moment, the burial of heaven suddenly detected several demon race experts standing in the sky 30,000 miles away. The person in the lead was a charming and captivating fox woman. She was about 7 feet tall and had a graceful figure. She wore a long silver palace dress and a complicated and exquisite divine crown and headdress. He had a snow-white fur cloak draped over his shoulders, and it emitted mysterious and reserved ripples of divine power. Even though this fox woman looked delicate and weak, she was extremely dignified. Behind him, 5 demon clan experts with different appearances stood in a straight line, appearing to be quite well behaved and respectful. These 5 weirdly dressed demons had both males and females, but they were all divine king experts. Among them, there were 3 7th stage realm high-level god kings and 2 6th stage realm medium-level god kings. As for the female fox leader, her strength had already reached the peak of the 8th degree realm. These 6 god kings would definitely be overlords of a region no matter where they were placed in the Star Source continent. They were existences with awe-inspiring reputations. And at this moment they stood quietly in the sky, staring coldly in front of them, watching the pitch-black divine sword flying towards them. After the burial of heaven observed the 6 divine king experts, it hesitated and slowed down its flying speed. It secretly probed in all directions, searching for any abnormalities between heaven and earth to see if there were any traps or ambushes. It couldn't be helped. The other party came with ill intentions, so it was obvious that they had made arrangements and ambushes in advance. No matter how strong Ji Tianqing was, he had to be careful when dealing with them. As the saying went, it was easy to dodge a spear in the open, but difficult to defend against a hidden arrow. Swoosh! When it was 20,000 miles away from the 6 divine kings, the burial of heaven decided to stop. Although it didn't discover any arrays or ambushes around the 6 divine kings, it couldn't be careless. It stopped in the sky and confronted the divine kings, and it sent a voice transmission to Ji Tianqing to wake him up. The person you're looking for is here. Ji Tianqing, who was cultivating in the distorted space, hurriedly stopped cultivating and left the distorted space. Swoosh! The next moment he appeared high in the sky, holding the burial of heaven sword in his hand, looking at the sky in front of him. When he saw the appearances of the 6 god kings, he had a clear understanding of their strength and cultivation levels. Therefore, his lips curled into a cold smile, holding the burial of heaven sword in a reverse grip. He turned and flew towards the east. 20,000 miles away, the 6 divine kings were staring at him and sizing him up. When they saw him suddenly changing direction and taking a detour, everyone frowned and revealed a look of contempt. This kid knows his place. He even knows to avoid danger and take a detour. Rumor has it that he's very arrogant. Seeing him today, he might not be arrogant, but he's really vigilant and cunning. With Great Elder taking action personally together with us, it's easy to kill him. Why would he need to set up traps and ambushes? This guy is really gauging the heart of a gentleman with his own mean measure. The divine kings began to discuss, their words not concealing their contempt at all. However, the leading Fox clan woman's expression did not change. She ordered in a deep voice, "Stop him." As soon as she finished speaking, she led the 5 God King experts and chased after Ji Tianqing at lightning speed. However, before she left, she glanced at a certain lump of lead cloud behind her. After she left with the 5 God Kings, a blurry figure actually flew out of the normal leaden cloud. Swoosh! The phantom also swept across the sky as fast as lightning, chasing in the direction Ji Tianqing fled. Before long, the figures of many divine kings of the demon race appeared in the sea of clouds tens of thousands of miles away. They all flew towards the east. Ji Tianqing did not flee. He only flew east for 50,000 miles and stopped in the sky above wild returning mountain range. He stood proudly high in the sky, looking at the group of people chasing after him with a cold smile. In the blink of an eye, the Fox clan woman and the 5 divine kings caught up and stopped 50 kilometers away from him. The two parties faced each other high in the sky, their eyes cold. As for the blurry phantom, it quietly approached them and hid in a lump of lead cloud. In the sea of clouds in all directions, there were 3 groups of divine kings of the demon race. They all maintained a distance of 50,000 miles and hid in the sea of clouds to observe the situation. The Fox clan woman sized up Ji Tianqing and asked calmly, "You are Long Tian?" Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and said, "That's right, it's me. You are from the Myriad Demon Alliance?" Introduce yourselves. The Fox Clan woman frowned slightly and said indifferently, Is there a need? Ji Tianqing's lips curled into a cold smile. You have waited for me for a long time. How would you know that I have been waiting for you as well? If your status is not high, I will not waste my breath on you. The Fox Clan woman immediately understood what he meant and asked in return, I am the Myriad Demon Alliance's Grand Elder, Hu Xinhua. Are you looking for us because you have something to say to us? Chapter 3666. Of course. Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and looked straight at Hu Xinhua. He asked expressionlessly, I have no enmity with the 10,000 Demon Alliance. Why did you issue the bounty for the Tao Tai and Chong cheese? Was it Tao Yongsheng or Shueshang who issued the bounty? Or was it jointly issued by the two of them? The 5 god kings behind Hu Xinhua frowned when they heard that. Their faces became hostile. The groups of god kings hiding in the sea of clouds 50,000 kilometers away were all stunned and doubtful. Obviously, the 3 groups of god kings thought that Long Tian had offended the 10,000 Demon Alliance and issued the bounty. They did not expect that the 10,000 Demon Alliance had no enmity with Long Tian and only issued the bounty on behalf of the Tao Tai and Chong cheese. Hu Xinhua frowned and said coldly, The 10,000 Demon Alliance oversees the northwest of the continent and commands the 32 regions. They are respected by billions of people. When the Tao Tai and Chong cheese under their command were massacred and asked for help from the alliance, we naturally would not sit by and do nothing. As for who issued the bounty, we promised to keep it a secret. Why would we reveal it to you? Ji Tianqing smiled meaningfully and pointed at a certain lead cloud behind Hu Xinhua. He said coldly, Actually, even if you don't answer, I have an answer in my heart. He is already here, so why hide? As he said this, everyone turned to look at the lead cloud. Suddenly, the lead cloud that looked normal shook a few times. Hu Xinhua frowned and scolded him in her heart. Idiot! After a while, the lead cloud surged and an illusory figure flew out and gradually became solid. Swoosh! This old and stooped figure landed beside Hu Xinhua and the others. Ji Tianqing took a closer look and the sneer on his face deepened. Tao Yongsheng, I haven't seen you for 20 days and you look so old and pathetic. Why? Not only did you issue the bounty, you also want to see me killed? Without a doubt, the white-haired and pathetic demon clan elder was the Tao Tai clan leader, Tao Yongsheng. After the battle at the Surging Sun Lake, Shueshang fled back to the Nebula Cave and no longer accompanied him. He became a loner and did not return to the star-devouring paradise. He had been running around for the bounty. The 10,000 Demon Alliance did not accept empty promises or promissory notes. He could only meet with Great Elder Hu Xinhua as soon as possible to fulfill the bounty that was worth 100 billion, as well as the reward for the 10,000 Demon Alliance. This had almost emptied his family fortune. After all, he only had this much wealth in his interspatial ring. He had been rushing all the way here and hadn't had the time to recuperate or adjust his breathing. Coupled with the unquenchable anger in his heart, he was in such an old and sorry state. After the matter of the bounty was settled, he still wanted to see Hu Xinhua kill Long Tian with his own eyes, so he followed Hu Xinhua to the Azure Snow Domain. Therefore, Ji Tianqing's guess was completely correct. Now that the enemy had met, his eyes were exceptionally red. Tao Yongsheng's eyes were bloodshot as he glared at Ji Tianqing and sneered, Long Tian, no matter how cunning you are, you can't escape death. Although I can't do it myself, I want to see with my own eyes the scene of you being cut into pieces and your bones being ground to dust. Ji Tianqing looked at him with eyes full of pity and sneered, Tao Yongsheng, I have already spared your life, but I didn't expect you to still insist on dying. Shueshang was tricked by you once, so he has learned his lesson and won't get involved in this matter anymore. However, you persevered and would rather let the Tao Tai clan die with you to take revenge. I didn't expect you to think of a way to kill with a borrowed knife in order to avoid the oath of the heavenly way. This is really too clumsy. Hearing Ji Tianqing's words, Hu Xinhua, the 5 god kings, and the god kings hiding in the sea of clouds all looked at each other in confusion. Everyone was confused and did not understand what had happened between Ji Tianqing and Tao Yongsheng previously. Hu Xinyue frowned and thought for a while, but she could roughly guess. She suddenly understood. No wonder Tao Yongsheng hated Long Tian to the bone but did not dare to do it himself. It turned out that this old fellow was forced to swear the oath of the heavenly way. Thinking of this, Hu Xinyue looked at Ji Tianqing with more fear in her eyes. Tao Yongsheng saw that everyone's expressions were strange, and they were all whispering about him. He was instantly enraged. He pointed at Ji Tianqing and shouted angrily, "Long Tian, it's useless even if you have a glib tongue today. Elder Hu Xinyue will bring 3 heavenly kings and 2 inspectors to tear you into pieces. You can bully my clan, but do you think you can do whatever you want and be lawless? My Taotai clan can't deal with you, but there's still the Thousand Demon Alliance." Tao Yongsheng hated Ji Tianqing to the bone and did not want to waste time. He only wanted to see him killed as soon as possible. But this was only one of the reasons. Most importantly, he did not want to talk nonsense with Ji Tianqing anymore. In case Ji Tianqing revealed what had happened before, he would definitely lose face. Ji Tianqing saw that Tao Yongsheng was so impatient and could not help but sneer. He pointed at him with his sword and said, "Tao Yongsheng, since you have violated the oath and used such a despicable method to take revenge on me, don't blame me for being ruthless. Today I will kill you first. Another day, I will destroy the star-devouring cave and make your Taotai clan extinct. This is the consequence of violating the oath of the heavenly way." Tao Yongsheng was so angry that his face turned green, and killing intent surged in his eyes. But he did not dare to make a move. He could only suppress his anger and hurriedly send a voice transmission to Hu Xinyue to make a move. Hu Xinyue stared coldly at Ji Tianqing and shouted, "You are really shameless and lawless. This is the territory of the Myriad Demon Alliance. You are not allowed to be presumptuous." After saying that, a divine light flashed in her right hand, and she took out her natal weapon. It was a purple gold whip that was studded with gems and divine jades. The other 3 heavenly kings and supervisors also took out their weapons. Divine power surged in their bodies, and they were ready to attack. Ji Tianqing glanced at them and looked at the sea of clouds in the distance. He sneered and said, "Since you want to make a move, don't be so secretive. Let those who are lying in ambush come together." Hu Xinyue and the 5 divine kings were stunned for a moment, and they sneered disdainfully. "Haha, my 5 comrades and I are enough to kill you. Why do we need others to do it? Long Tian, who do you think you are? Do you think you are worthy of us setting up an ambush?" Those are the divine kings from the various regions. They were indeed prepared to kill you. But now that we are here, they can only hide and watch the show. Ji Tianqing finally understood that the 3 groups of divine kings were not from the Myriad Demon Alliance. He shook his head and said in a regretful tone, "It's a pity that those people aren't your accomplices. This king is very curious. Where did you get the courage to kill this king with just 6 people?" Hu Xinyue and the 5 divine kings were instantly enraged, and their bodies were filled with killing intent. "Arrogant and ignorant. Kid, you don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Die!" Everyone shouted angrily and waved their divine weapons. They used their trump cards and attacked Ji Tianqing together. Chapter 36-67. Although Hu Xinyue, the 3 heavenly kings and the 2 inspectors did not seem to be very powerful, but Ji Tianqing had indeed underestimated them. The moment they attacked, they used all kinds of divine skills and unleashed a powerful combat power. The 2 supervisors of the 6th sky of King God realm obviously had a joint attack. The divine abilities and ultimate skills that the 2 of them executed could actually be combined into one, causing the power to increase by 3 times. It was comparable to a 7th degree realm high divine king. The 3 heavenly kings of the Thousand Demon League had their own strengths. They had mastered more than 600 divine Tao laws. The sword shadows, giant beasts and light blades that they unleashed carried more than 100 divine Tao laws, causing the space within a radius of 20,000 miles to become chaotic. As for Hu Xinyue, she was indeed the great elder of the Thousand Demon League. Although she was only at the 8th layer divine king realm, her combat power was comparable to that of a 9th layer expert. She was not weaker than Tao Yongsheng and Xue Shang. She used her left hand to control the space law and sealed the space within a radius of 20,000 miles. She froze the space and made it difficult for Ji Tianqing to move. She waved the purple gold whip in her right hand and millions of starlight rays fell like a meteor shower, covering the land. An incomparably terrifying pressure ruthlessly suppressed Ji Tianqing. He could not move and his divine power was blocked. His combat power was greatly reduced. Without a doubt, most ninth-layer Divine King Realm experts could not resist the joint attack of Hu Xinyue and the others. For example, if Tao Yongshang and Xue Shang were in Ji Tianqing's place, they would be injured immediately. This was the source of Hu Xinyue and the others' confidence. But unfortunately, their opponent was Ji Tianqing. He was neither a ninth-stage God King nor a monster in the ninth stage of the God King realm. He was a peerless genius who could not be judged by common sense. When the sky was filled with divine spells, the endless sword lights and the rain of stars were about to drown Ji Tianqing, he suddenly stopped. He did not draw his sword, nor did he use any technique to block or dodge. Under Tao Yongxing's anxious and expectant gaze, his body flashed with white light and he disappeared into thin air. Swoosh! In an instant, he disappeared without a trace. Even though his aura was still present, the spiritual senses of many God King experts were unable to find any traces of him even after searching the surrounding 50,000 li. In fact, it was not limited to a radius of 100,000 miles. Even if it was a radius of 200,000 miles, the result would be the same. Rumble! Bang 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 bang. The divine light shadows that blotted out the sky and the billions of starlight raindrops all missed their target and hit the wild returning mountain range below. Along with an earth-shaking, deafening boom, everything within a radius of 20,000 miles was turned into ruins, with dust flying in all directions. Hundreds of thousands of peaks disappeared. Mountains, valleys, and rivers were all razed to the ground. Destructive shockwaves spread out in all directions, covering a radius of 50,000 miles. The earth trembled violently for a long time. Around the 20,000 ruins, numerous cracks appeared. Such terrifying destructive power left the three groups of God Kings watching the battle secretly speechless. However, everyone's attention was not on this. Hu Xinyue, the five God Kings, Tao Yongsheng, and the others all frowned as they searched around. Everyone stopped attacking and used all kinds of divine abilities to search for Ji Tianqing's whereabouts. That's strange. Where did that guy hide? Despicable coward. He didn't dare to fight and hid like a coward. Even if I have to dig 30,000 feet into the ground, I will find him. He must have used his spatial powers to hide in an alternate dimension. The God Kings discussed in low voices and were rather angry, especially Tao Yongsheng, who was the most angry and anxious. Damn bastard. Wasn't he very arrogant just now? Why did he hide in the blink of an eye? Great Elder, I'll have to trouble everyone to search carefully. You must find him and absolutely cannot let him escape. He also did not understand what method Ji Tianqing used to be able to disappear without a trace. However, he was most worried that Ji Tianqing would take the opportunity to escape. In that case, it would be difficult to kill him again. In just 2 short breaths, everyone used their skills to search a radius of 50,000 miles. The 3 heavenly kings even searched 6 levels of alternate dimensions. However, it was a pity that they did not find anything. Hu Xinyue decisively ordered and said coldly, "This person is cunning. He will definitely take the opportunity to escape." Everyone, spread out immediately and search a radius of 50,000 miles repeatedly. Even a peak God King's divine sense could only cover a radius of 50,000 miles. This was the limit of a God King expert. Therefore, Hu Xinyue fixed the search radius to 50,000 miles. She believed that even if Ji Tianqing had great skills, he would not be able to teleport 50,000 miles and escape from this area. Yes, the 3 heavenly kings and the 2 inspectors acknowledged the order and hurriedly spread out with their weapons to search. Tao Yongsheng was the most anxious. He even ignored the heavenly Tao oath and joined the search. Anyway, I won't attack him. I'm just searching for his traces. It shouldn't be considered as breaking the oath. Perhaps the heavenly Tao won't nitpick? He comforted himself in his heart. Soon, Everyone spread out and searched in different directions. The three groups of god kings who were watching the battle in the dark were afraid of being implicated. They hurriedly retreated further away. 30 breaths later, Tao Yongsheng searched 30,000 miles and was getting further and further away from Hu Xinyue and the rest. The closest supervisor to him was 60,000 miles away. At this moment, Ji Tianqing, who had transformed into heaven and earth, suddenly appeared. Swoosh! With a slight spatial fluctuation, he appeared behind Tao Yongsheng and was less than 10,000 feet away. Absolute shadows of 10 directions. In the next moment, he split into 7 and surrounded Tao Yongsheng and launched an attack. Tao Yongsheng was indeed a 9th stage God King expert. His divine sense was extremely sharp. When Ji Tianqing appeared, he sensed that something was amiss. But when he turned back to look, he saw 7 identical Long Tians. He was instantly dumbfounded. Although he was only stunned for 1/3 of an instant, he regained his senses and immediately took out the primordial chaos bell to protect himself. But it was a pity that he was too late. When top experts fought, victory was decided in an instant. Heaven-piercing sword. Blade of space-time. Sword of destruction. Sword breaking 9 heavens. Sword of daytime. Heaven-piercing finger. Ji Tianqing's original body and 6 doppelgangers respectively executed different remarkable skills and attacked Tao Yongsheng from all directions. Even when the primordial chaos bell appeared and floated above his head, it lit up with dark red bloodlight and formed a shield to help Tao Yongsheng block the sword light and fist radiance. But he was still hit by 3 swords and a heaven-piercing finger. One of the swords cut off his left leg. The second sword cut off his right arm. The third sword left a long and narrow wound on his back and blood gushed out. As for the heaven-piercing finger, it accurately pierced his left eye and pierced through his head. Bam bam bam. Puff ah ah. A series of muffled sounds, mixed with the sound of God's blood splattering and Tao Yongsheng's shrill screams, resounded in the sky. Soon, the God King experts in all directions were alarmed and their faces were filled with fear. Chapter 3668. Hu Xinyue and the other God Kings were focused on searching for Ji Tianqing's whereabouts. Out of the blue, Ji Tianqing suddenly appeared. He actually took the initiative to appear and sneak an attack on the most powerful 9th stage realm God King, Tao Yongsheng. This was completely out of everyone's expectations and caught them off guard. Especially the 2 weakest patrol envoys, who were only mid-level divine kings, secretly let out a sigh of relief. According to conventional thinking, everyone knew that Ji Tianqing only had 2 choices for hiding. He could either take the opportunity to escape or wait for an opportunity to sneak an attack. If he were to assassinate, he would definitely kill the weakest person first to reduce the number of opponents and effectively reduce the threat. The 2 inspectors, Hu Xinyue and the 3 heavenly kings, understood this logic, and so did Tao Yongsheng. Therefore, when everyone was searching everywhere, Hu Xinyue and the 3 heavenly kings were secretly paying attention to the 2 inspectors to prevent Ji Tianqing from sneaking an attack. As for Tao Yongsheng, he was ignored by everyone. But the truth was exactly the opposite of everyone's expectations. Ji Tianqing deliberately chose Tao Yongsheng, the toughest bone to chew. But when everyone thought about it, this seemed to be reasonable. After all, the person who issued the bounty order was Tao Yongsheng. Ji Tianqing had a blood feud with him, but he had never met the 6 experts from the Thousand Demon Alliance. When Hu Xinyue and the 5 God Kings heard Tao Yongsheng's miserable cry, they flew towards him and saw the tragic scene of Tao Yongsheng being severely injured. Even though the primordial chaos bell had blocked almost half of the attack, he was still stabbed several times and his robe was stained with blood. Not to mention the sword wounds on his body, just his empty and bleeding left eye was a ghastly sight and extremely terrifying. Ah! Tao Yongsheng's left hand formed a seal and controlled the primordial chaos bell to activate its defensive power to the maximum. His right hand's left eye was bleeding profusely, and he let out a heart-wrenching cry as his entire body trembled. The power of the heaven-piercing finger not only pierced through his left eye, it also shook his sea of consciousness, causing him to feel dizzy and his consciousness to become blurry. Even his godhead was greatly affected, and his god force was in chaos. More importantly, he had been poisoned by Ji Tianqing's innate fiend soul transference poison. and had not had the time to circulate his internal energy to expel the poison. Even though he had been using his profound skills to suppress the poison and prevent it from exploding, he was still unable to control it. However, at this moment after he was severely injured, his divine power was in chaos. The poison took the opportunity to erupt and spread throughout his body. As a result, his 9th-level divine king realm strength was reduced by half. Longtian, you despicable beast, you will die a horrible death. Hiding behind the protective shield of the bell, Tao Yongsheng glared at Ji Tianqing, who was thousands of feet away, and cursed with a venomous tone. Ji Tianqing said expressionlessly, "The one who will die a horrible death is you." Tao Yongsheng sneered disdainfully, "You want to kill me? Dream on. With the primordial chaos bell in hand, I am invincible. 20 days ago during the battle at Gushing Sun Lake, you were unable to kill me. It's the same today." Although he was severely injured, his life was saved and he could slowly recuperate in the future. However, the corners of Ji Tianqing's mouth curled into a mocking sneer as he said, "Can't kill you? Haha. Look behind you." Hearing this, Tao Yongxing's heart skipped a beat, and he subconsciously turned his head to look behind him. He saw that there were 5 identical Ji Tianqing in the blood-red light shield behind him. 4 of them were doppelgangers and the last one was his real body. Apparently, he had taken advantage of the gap when Tao Yongsheng had taken out the primordial chaos bell to sneak into the shield. This is impossible. Tao Yongxing's face changed dramatically and he widened his eyes in shock. He let out a furious roar. At the same time, Ji Tianqing and the 4 doppelgangers waved their swords at the same time and used their unique skills to attack Tao Yongsheng. Blade of Space-Time, Sword of Daytime, Sword of 9 Heavens, Sword of Destruction, Finger of Destruction. All kinds of divine abilities and divine powers with more than 300 types of laws turned into dazzling lights and shadows that drowned Tao Yongsheng in an instant. Previously, Tao Yongsheng had the primordial chaos bell to block all kinds of divine abilities and killer moves for him, and he was naturally safe. But now, he and Ji Tianqing were both inside the primordial chaos bell's light shield. The primordial chaos bell could not block the attacks for him, and could not unleash its power. He could only activate the divine bell with all his might and release a terrifying power to suppress Ji Tianqing and the 4 doppelgangers. This move was indeed effective. The primordial chaos bell released a vast and irresistible divine power that covered the sky and the earth and suppressed Ji Tianqing and his doppelgangers. Even their divine abilities and consummate skills were trembling in fear. Their speed slowed down and their power weakened a little. However, it only weakened the power and could not neutralize the attacks of Ji Tianqing and his doppelgangers. Tao Yongsheng was severely injured and he was inside the shield. He could not dodge at all and was immediately hit by the sword light. Bam! 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 Following a series of muffled sounds, Tao Yongsheng was hit by the sword light. His body trembled and he was sent flying in all directions. Blood splattered all over his body. Even though he avoided his vital parts in time, the sword light and the sky-piercing finger still left a few bloody holes on his body. The splattered blood dyed his clothes, hair, and face red, turning him into a bloody man. His strength weakened further and the innate demon soul transference poison in his body erupted violently again, causing his blood and divine power to burn. Ah! His entire body burned with bloody flames and his divine power leaked out crazily. Flaming blood spurted out of his 7 orifices and he let out a muffled scream. This was definitely the most dangerous and embarrassing moment he had ever been in his entire life. Swoosh! 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 Ji Tianqing remained silent and took the opportunity to attack with his 4 doppelgangers. He and his doppelgangers were suppressed by the primordial chaos bell's vast divine power, slowing down their speed and greatly reducing their combat power. However, in order to kill Tao Yongsheng as soon as possible, he did not hesitate to use his trump card. Celestial Dragon Tyrant Body. He roared angrily and his entire body bloomed with golden light. His entire body turned into a dragon. Golden light flashed and he turned into a 300-meter-tall golden armored giant. His entire body was covered with dragon scales and a pair of dark golden dragon wings grew out of his back. Unfortunately, His main body used the celestial dragon tyrant body and his strength increased by 6 times, but his 4 doppelgangers did not change. Die! Ji Tianqing roared angrily and held the sword of burial of heaven with both hands. He activated the 330 types of divine power and slashed out the strongest sword of destruction. Swoosh! The 300-meter-long dazzling golden sword was more dazzling than the sun. It slashed down from the sky toward Tao Yongsheng. Layers of divine runes of divine power enveloped Tao Yongsheng like invisible waves and sealed him in place. He could not dodge. In today's battle, in order to kill Tao Yongsheng, this was the 3rd time he used the power of the world. After this, he would have to replenish the 5 elements world with resources worth hundreds of billions to make up for it. Chapter 3669. Kaboom! The dazzling giant sword slashed Tao Yongsheng with earth-shattering power. The 4 doppelgangers also used all kinds of divine skills to attack him at the same time. Following a crisp explosion, Tao Yongsheng's protective divine light and armor both collapsed and shattered into pieces, filling the sky with debris. Hu Xinyue, the 3 heavenly kings, and the 2 inspectors were rushing over as fast as they could. However, they were still tens of thousands of miles away from the primordial chaos bell. They could only vaguely see with their divine senses that Tao Yongsheng was shattered into pieces under the dazzling golden sword. It was like a porcelain vase that had been smashed by a hammer, shattering into pieces and splashing out countless fragments. Tao Yongsheng's divine body was destroyed by Ji Tianqing just like that. Moreover, it was dismembered into thousands of pieces under the protection of the primordial chaos bell, the Tao Tai clan's divine weapon. A godhead that was wrapped in dark blue flames and blood-red flames flew out of the shattered pieces and rushed into the sky. Obviously, Tao Yongsheng's godhead was corroded by poison and was very weak. He could no longer protect himself. At this moment he only wanted to escape into the primordial chaos bell and use it to escape this place. Killing Ji Tianqing and taking revenge would be left to Hu Xinyue and the experts of the 10,000 Demon League. Haha! Since I have decided to kill you, why would I give you a chance to live? Ji Tianqing's lips curled into a cold smile. He looked up at the godhead that was soaring into the sky. He reached out with his giant golden dragon claw and grabbed at the godhead. Kaboom! Instantly, with the godhead as the center, the space within a radius of 10,000 feet was crushed by him. The space shattered and countless pitch-black void cracks appeared and intertwined. Tao Yongsheng's godhead floated in the void cracks and could be swept away by the void storm at any time. Once he fell into the void, he would drift to an unknown place. Of course, with his strength of the 9th Heaven King God realm, even if he was exiled into the void, he might not die. The chances of him surviving were very high. Therefore, Ji Tianqing would never let him enter the void. Swoosh! Swoosh! His 4 doppelgangers had long been ready to charge into the fragmented chaotic space. In the crisscrossing cracks in the void, the 4 clones intercepted Tao Yongsheng's godhead, captured it, and brought it back to Ji Tianqing. The cracks in the void quickly healed under the will of the heavenly Tao. On the other hand, Tao Yongsheng's godhead was trapped by the 2 clones' golden light spheres and was struggling madly. As for the primordial chaos bell floating high in the sky, it was also a spiritual treasure. Sensing that its master had fallen into a desperate situation and was on the verge of death, the primordial chaos bell actually blossomed with bloody light and released a world-destroying pressure to destroy Ji Tianqing and his avatar. Seeing this, the 4 clones joined hands to cast a spell, intending to form a formation to resist the suppression of the divine bell. On the other hand, Ji Tianqing's reaction was exceptionally ruthless and decisive. Without hesitation, he brandished the sword of burial of heaven and shattered the golden ball of light, as well as the godhead in the ball of light. Tao Yongsheng didn't even have time to beg for mercy or cry out before he was killed just like that. With a crisp cracking sound, the godhead turned into more than 20 pieces and scattered in the sky. With Tao Yongsheng's death, the connection between him and the primordial chaos bell was severed and disappeared. Naturally, the primordial chaos bell also became an object without an owner. It immediately regained its calm and its divine light retracted. The terrifying divine power descending from the sky also stopped abruptly and slowly dissipated. It was over. Ji Tianqing waved his hand and kept the pieces of Tao Yongxing's godhead. Then he used a suction technique to shrink the primordial chaos bell 100 times and kept it in his sleeve. Of course, Tao Yongxing's interspatial ring was also picked up by one of his clones and handed to him. At this moment, Hu Xinyue and the 5 divine kings had just crossed the sky and arrived before him. Ji Tianqing placed his left hand behind his back and held the sword of burial of heaven in his right hand. He stood in the sky with a proud expression and looked at the people flying towards him. The 6 clones spread out and formed a fan-shaped defensive line behind him. They all held their swords and looked at Hu Xinyue and the others. A mysterious, majestic and domineering aura permeated the sky. It made the divine kings who were watching the battle in secret to be filled with fear and respect. As for Hu Xinyue and the 5 divine kings, they were originally filled with anger and murderous intent as they rushed over. When they saw Ji Tianqing's stance, they rushed 100 miles away and stopped in the sky. The 6 of them did not dare to act rashly. They stared at Ji Tianqing solemnly and vigilantly. Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and asked Hu Xinyue, "Tao Yongsheng, who entrusted you to issue the bounty, is already dead. Do you still want to continue besieging me?" Hearing this, the 3 heavenly kings and the 2 patrol envoys averted their eyes and each had their own thoughts. They had witnessed Ji Tianqing's terrifying power and means with their own eyes. Even Tao Yongsheng, who was in the 9th realm and had the protection of the primordial chaos bell, was easily killed by him. It was conceivable that if they continued to fight, they would not be Ji Tianqing's match and would probably be buried here. If it was possible, the 3 heavenly kings and the 2 patrol envoys did not want to fight anymore. Unexpectedly, Hu Xinyue stared coldly at Ji Tianqing and said expressionlessly, "You killed Tao Yongsheng and that's a grudge between you and him. But our league has already accepted Tao Yongxing's money and issued the bounty, so naturally we have to complete the mission. The league has its own rules." Ji Tianqing sneered disdainfully and said, "So you are the same as Tao Yongsheng. You are all idiots who give up your lives for hypocritical dignity." The 3 heavenly kings and the 2 patrol envoys frowned and were about to argue with him. However, Hu Xinyue was expressionless and said firmly, "I have said before, this has nothing to do with dignity, it's just the rules. If the rules are broken, how can the league convince the public?" Ha ha ha. Ji Tianqing sneered again and said indifferently, "Since you insist on seeking death, I have no other choice but to fulfill your wishes." The 3 heavenly kings and the 2 patrol envoys frowned and muttered to themselves, "Nonsense. You have a second choice. You can run. As long as you run with all your might, we will definitely not be able to catch up with you. Then we don't have to risk our lives. Even if we can catch up with you, we won't do our best." Of course, they only thought about it in their hearts and did not dare to say it out loud. How shameful. "Come on, let's fight together. There's no need to queue up if you want to die," Ji Tianqing said with a smile as he formed a sword seal with his left hand and pointed the sword at the ground with his right hand. Behind him, the 6 doppelgangers were also accumulating their divine power and were ready to attack. Hu Xinyue frowned and asked, "Why don't you continue to hide and attack? Are you going to fight directly?" Ji Tianqing smiled and said, "Hiding and attacking secretly is just to kill Tao Yongsheng as soon as possible. That old man has the primordial chaos bell to protect him. It's hard to kill him without using some tricks. As for you guys, why do you have to attack secretly? Fighting directly is like chopping vegetables." Chapter 3670. Arrogant and ignorant. No matter how good Hu Xinyue's self-control was, she was still infuriated by Ji Tianqing. She shouted and her body lit up with divine light. She unleashed all her power and attacked Ji Tianqing with her purple golden whip. The 3 heavenly kings and the 2 inspectors also roared in unison, brandishing their swords and sabers as they attacked from all sides. Ji Tianqing stood still and ignored the 3 heavenly kings and the 2 inspectors. He only stared coldly at Hu Xinyue. Swish! Swish! Meanwhile, the 6 clones behind him shot out with lightning-like speed, swinging their swords at the 5 god kings. Bam! 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 In the next moment, the 5 divine kings and the 6 clones faced the attacks head-on. They used all kinds of divine powers and clashed with each other. Following a deafening explosion, the divine light that covered the sky also collapsed and shattered, splashing out endless fragments of divine light. The destructive shockwave carried the divine light fragments and turned into a 5-colored flood. It spread in all directions and covered a radius of 80,000 miles. The surrounding sea of clouds was instantly swept away. The 3 divine kings who were hiding in the sea of clouds were also pushed back by the violent shockwave. They retreated further away in fear. At this moment, Ji Tianqing and Hu Xinyue flew into the sky and started to fight. Heavenly Fox Moon Slash. Hu Xinyue held her purple golden whip and used her divine body and whip to form a crescent that was 10,000 feet long. She slashed towards Ji Tianqing like a curved blade. As the saber slashed down, a huge ravine appeared in the blue sky, and a wide spatial rift appeared. Before the blade radiance arrived, more than 200 types of laws and divine powers had already sealed a radius of 1,000 miles and suppressed Ji Tianqing. In the layers of laws and divine patterns there were all kinds of illusory scenes. There was the rise and fall of the sun and the moon, the movement of the stars, the transformation of the world, wind, frost, rain and snow. Even though Ji Tianqing was experienced, he had to admit that Hu Xinyue's strength was far beyond the divine kings of the same level. It was really rare. If they were to fight head-on, Hu Xinyue might not necessarily lose to Tao Yongsheng at his peak. She was worthy of being called a formidable opponent. Rising sword. Ji Tianqing, who seemed to be sealed and unable to move, suddenly swung his sword to meet the attack when the heavenly fox falling moon slash descended on his head. His posture was relaxed, and the way he swung his sword was natural and unrestrained. He was like a drifting cloud, a gentle breeze blew and stars revolved, and he was extremely conforming with the grand Tao of the heavens and the earth. This sword strike had already reached a perfect state of being perfectly round and returning to its original state. It looked like a casual strike, but it contained the unfathomable sword Tao true intent, as well as the sword intent that could cut through the stars and sever the sky. Boom! In the next moment, the ethereal sword that was like a floating cloud strangely slashed the crescent-shaped saber light, causing a loud and clear sound to ring out. The ethereal sword was retracted right after it was released. That crescent moon-like blade light was broken into pieces and disintegrated on the spot. Walala, fragments of moonlight sprinkled down from the sky like a rain of stars. Hu Xinyue, who was holding the purple gold whip, was also knocked out of her true form. She spat out blood as she flew back. Swoosh! She rolled and flew 100 miles before she managed to dissipate the terrifying impact and stabilized her body. Just as she was about to circulate her energy to suppress her injuries, she suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood and her face became even paler. What a mysterious sword skill, what a domineering sword intent. She bent her body and lifted her sleeve to wipe away the blood at the corner of her mouth. She stared at Ji Tianqing and could not help but exclaim softly, "I have seen at least 80 sword Tao divine kings in my life, if not 100. And your sword Tao is one of a kind, and can be said to be the best," Hu Xinyue said in a low voice. She secretly circulated her energy to suppress her injuries and get rid of the remaining sword intent in her body. That wisp of formless sword intent was too domineering. If she did not get rid of it in time, it would definitely destroy her internal organs and heart meridians. Ji Tianqing did not chase after her. He held his sword and looked at her saying, "You are not bad too. You should have broken through to the 9th stage long ago, but you have been suppressing yourself at the 8th stage. I believe you have other motives, right?" Hu Xinyue's lips curled up and sneered. "Ha, do you think I am praising you? I only want to say that since you are from the Dragon Clan, you should be more proficient in the Dragon Clan's remarkable skills. How can you have such profound sword Tao cultivation? There is a problem with your identity." It was true that the Orthodox Dragon Clan's divine kings not only had strong physical bodies, their divine power was also vast and boundless. When the Dragon Clan's divine kings fought, they were either invincible in close combat, crushing their opponents, or they were able to control the heaven and earth with their remarkable skills. The Dragon Clan would not attach importance to weapons such as sabers, spears, swords and halberds, and would not persist in cultivating them. Ji Tianqing frowned slightly and a cold glint flashed past his eyes. He sneered, "If you only have this bit of ability, then your words should become your last words." Apparently, he avoided answering Hu Xinyue's question to prevent himself from being exposed. "Who exactly are you?" Hu Xinyue was extremely persistent. She stared at him angrily and shouted at the top of her lungs. Ji Tianqing kept silent. In a flash, he teleported in front of her and waved his sword swiftly. Sword of Daytime. The pitch-black heaven barrier sword released a bit of cold star, and then no more divine light shone. However, that cold star that was extremely condensed instantly expanded 1,000 times, 10,000 times, 1,000,000 times. In an instant, it became a dazzling golden light that was like the sun and was about to swallow Hu Xinyue. At the moment of life and death, Hu Xinyue's pupils contracted and her nerves tensed. Without any hesitation, she removed the seal and revealed her demonic beast form. Roar! As a dull and angry demonic beast roar sounded, her body bloomed with bright moonlight. She instantly turned into a snow-white demonic fox that was thousands of feet long and as huge as a mountain. This extremely beautiful and elegant demonic fox was not a nine-tailed demonic fox with a noble bloodline. She actually had 12 fluffy, snow-white tails. When the Sword of Daytime was about to swallow her, her 12 tails bloomed with bright moonlight and formed a moonlight barrier in front of her. This was the heavenly moon barrier that she had used all her power to form. It was indestructible. Kaboom! In the next moment, the Sword of Daytime hit the heavenly moon barrier hard and a shattering sound resounded through the sky. The heavenly moon barrier that Hu Xinyue relied on to protect her life was actually covered with dense cracks. It collapsed instantly and exploded into billions of pieces of moonlight. The Sword of Daytime broke the moonlight barrier and was about to kill her on the spot. Even if she could save her life, her body would definitely be severely injured or even destroyed. But what she didn't expect was that the Daylight Sword, which could destroy heaven and earth, instantly disappeared. Swoosh! In the next moment, Ji Tianqing, who was hundreds of miles away, appeared in front of her out of thin air. He was only 1,000 feet away from her. Although Ji Tianqing had returned to his normal size and was only 8 feet tall, she was a demonic fox that was thousands of feet long and as huge as a mountain. The difference in size between the two was like a sesame seed and a watermelon. However, Ji Tianqing's aura completely suppressed her. Her body trembled slightly and she was stunned. Her dark blue eyes stared at Ji Tianqing and revealed a puzzled look. Why didn't you kill me?" Obviously, Ji Tianqing had shown mercy at the critical moment. You're tuning into the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.